Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. For those that are new to my YouTube channel, subscribe immediately to see more content, and also leave a comment down below to suggest more amazing kinds of videos. Bring in the first movie of What If the Transformers crash landed in the Cul-de-Sac. Link down in the description of the fanfiction This What If. This is a re-upload of the original What If, and maybe the Transformers are actually from G1, Armada, Cyberverse and Beast Wars. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 1, The Shooting Star. The Fall. The Ark wasn't a ship anymore. It was a tomb, spiraling through the black. For Vorns, it had been a vessel of hope. Now, it was a burning casket, trailing plasma and coolant as it fled the corpse of Cybertron. Behind it, the Nemesis clung like a shark, its cannons painting the void with beams of furious magenta. Inside the shuddering hull, Optimus Prime met Megatron's charge. Their blades crossed, a blue axe against a dark flail, sending shockwaves through the deck. D-16. Optimus roared, parrying a strike that would have split a lesser bot in two. Call it off. We can still save them. Megatron's fusion cannon hummed, glowing with the heat of a captured star. Save them, he snarled, his voice a gravel avalanche. The only thing left to save is our race from you, Prime. From your weakness. He fired. Optimus rolled, the blast shearing through a bulkhead. Atmosphere screamed into space, taking 3 sleeping Autobots with it. Before Optimus could react, Megatron was on him, a fist of jagged metal crashing into his faceplate. Look around. Megatron bellowed, gesturing to the burning ship. This is what your idealism buys. A slow death in the dark. The Ark lurched. Gravity, a real, planetary pull, snatched them both. The two titans tumbled apart as the ship breached the atmosphere of an unknown world. Through a viewport cracked like a spider's web, Optimus saw a blue and green marble rushing up to meet them. Beautiful. Unspoiled. No, he thought, as the heat shields began to glow. Not like this. The Nemesis, trailing smoke and ruin, veered off, plunging into a vast, churning ocean. The Ark wasn't so lucky. It hit the side of a mountain with a screech of tortured metal, carving a canyon of destruction before burying itself in a tomb of rock, soil, and centuries of silence. One by one, their optics went dark. The Awakening, 2010. Peach Creek Junkyard was a kingdom of rust and forgotten things. A place where bad ideas went to die. And right now, 3 of those bad ideas were running for their lives. Get back here, you dorks. Kevin's voice was a shriek of pure fury. Behind him, Rolf brandished a herring like a cavalry saber, and Johnny, with plank held high, led the charge of the furious, the cheated, and the gullible. Scam of the century. Eddie wheezed, pumping his short legs as he vaulted a stack of rotting tires. They just don't appreciate genius. The only thing they don't appreciate, Double D panted, clutching his hat as he ran, is paying $5 for a magic pebble that was clearly just gravel spray painted gold. It was ambiance, sockhead. My arm is an ambiance. Ed shouted cheerfully, a bent bicycle wheel inexplicably tangled around his wrist. He was having a wonderful time. They dove behind a rusted-out school bus, hearts hammering. The mob's cries grew distant, confused. Lost him, Eddie whispered, grinning. See, my tactical brilliance. The ground vanished. With a triple yelp, they tumbled down a hidden slope, skidding to a stop in a darkness that smelled of ozone, ancient metal, and something else. Something big. Eddie was the first to find his feet. And the first to find the button. Ow. My. Click. The world exploded into light. A massive console hummed to life, its screens flickering with alien glyphs. A calm, synthesized voice echoed through the cavern. Teletron 1 online. Repair and reactivation protocol initiated. Then came the swarm. Thousands of tiny, insect-like drones poured from vents, flowing over the colossal, motionless shapes lining the walls like a metallic tide. The Eds froze. There were giants here. Sleek, angular, and impossibly complex. Their forms were a mix of machine and something almost alive. Some were scarred, dented, frozen in the act of battle. Ooh, Ed breathed, his eyes wide as dinner plates. They're giant space robots. Don't be an idiot, Ed, Eddie snapped, though his voice cracked. They're top secret government robots. How would you know, smarty pants? Ed shot back, perfectly mimicking Eddie's condescending tone. Their bickering died as the drones converged on the largest of the figures. They worked with surgical precision, welding, cleaning, reforging. With a final, blinding pulse of blue light, the giant's chestplate illuminated. His optics flickered, blazed, a deep, soulful blue. He sat up, metal groaning. His body was a sleek red and blue, the front of a truck cab folded across his chest. He turned his head, a movement slow and deliberate, and looked down. 3 boys. 3 tiny, fragile, organic creatures. "Well," said Optimus Prime, his voice a low, gentle rumble. "This is an unexpected surprise." The Eds were struck dumb. Ed gave a slow, goofy wave. Eddie's jaw hung open, and Double D, Ed, took a hesitant, trembling step forward. His terror was warring with a curiosity so powerful it almost hurt. "So," he whispered, adjusting his hat. What are you? Who made you?" Optimus raised a massive hand, palm out. A calming gesture. "Easy, little one. All will be answered. But first," he looked around at the other dormant forms. "My comrades need help." As if on cue, the chamber erupted. One by one, the Autobots awoke. Bumblebee popped up with a cheerful chirp of his horns. Ratchet groaned, already scanning for damage. Wheeljack's fins flickered erratically. Windblade stretched, her wings scraping the ceiling. Smokescreen, Hotshot, and a dozen others stirred from their century-long slumber, optics cycling in confusion. They all turned to stare at the 3 small humans. Ed broke the silence. He raised his hand, wiggled his fingers, and said, in a voice full of genuine, innocent wonder. "Hi." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, somewhere deep in the mountain, a seismic tremor shook the cavern. A distant, echoing boom. And on the TELETRAAN1 screen, a single red dot pulsed over a map of the local power grid. Optimus Prime's optics narrowed. The war had found them. Chapter 2, an explanation. The cavernous interior of the Ark had transformed from a tomb into something far stranger, a classroom. 3 boys, Eddie, Ed, and Double D, stood in a bewildered cluster, surrounded by towering metal giants. The initial terror had worn off, replaced by something the Eds rarely experienced together, genuine, undivided attention. "So," Eddie began, trying to lean against a console like he'd seen in movies, accidentally slipping and catching himself. "Let me get this straight. You guys are, like, alien robots from another planet. And you've been sleeping in our junkyard this whole time." "That is the simplified version," said Ratchet, the red and white medic, running a diagnostic scanner over his own arm. His tone was clinical, impatient. "Technically, we are autonomous robotic organisms from the planet Cybertron. Autobots, for short. And we have been in emergency stasis for approximately 4 million of your years." Eddie's eyes glazed over. 4 million. How much jawbreaker money could you make in 4 million years? "Eddie, that's not," Double D started. "I'm just saying, inflation's a killer." A sleek black and white robot stepped forward, his movements fluid and almost musical. "Yo, little dudes. The name's Jazz. Special Operations." He gave a casual 2-fingered salute that somehow radiated cool. "Pleasure's all ours. You boys pulled us out of a real deep nap." Eddie's eyes lit up like slot machines. The cool demeanor, the smooth voice, the effortless swagger, this was a bot after his own scheming heart. "Now that's what I'm talking about," Eddie declared, puffing out his chest and attempting to replicate Jazz's salute. It looked more like he was swatting a fly. "I like this guy way better than the grumpy one." "Grumpy." Ratchet's optics narrowed. "I am professional." "You called my friends had a questionable organic growth," Double D said flatly. "It is questionable." Before the argument could escalate, a red robot who looked remarkably similar to Bumblebee stomped forward, chest first. "The name's Cliffjumper. And before any of you get confused, yeah, me and B got the same designer. But don't let that fool you." He flexed an arm cannon. "I pack a bigger punch." Bumblebee buzzed a rapid series of indignant chirps and beeps, puffing out his own chestplate and pointing at his optics, then at Cliffjumper's. "Less than at least I still have both my front horns," greater than his datapad translated, the text appearing in midair. "That was one time. Less than you got stepped on by a garbage truck, Cliff." Greater than. It was a tactical advance. Double D, who had been vibrating with scientific curiosity, suddenly locked onto a new target. A robot with fin-like protrusions on his head and what looked like a cockpit embedded in his chest approached, holding a tool that sparked with unknown energy. "Ah, curious about the hardware," said Wheeljack, his optics gleaming with friendly intelligence. "I'm Wheeljack, head of Autobot Science Division, chief engineer, and resident maker of things that go, boom, intentionally or otherwise." Double D's face broke into the widest grin the Cul-de-Sac had ever seen. Oh my. A fellow man of science. The structural engineering alone, and those energy readings, and the materials science, he was already circling Wheeljack, pulling out a tape measure from his back pocket. "I have approximately 700 questions." "Only 700. Wheeljack laughed. "Kid, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Ed, who had been staring at the Dinobots with the reverent awe usually reserved for monsters in movies, suddenly turned and wrapped his arms around a massive green robot's leg. "Your bulkhead," Ed whispered, tears forming in his eyes. "I don't know how I know that, but I know that, and I love you." Bulkhead, who had been trying to quietly stand in the corner, looked down at the small human attached to his shin. "Thanks, little buddy. You're very sticky. I had a popsicle earlier." Eddie, finally losing patience with the emotional displays, clapped his hands together. All right, cool intros and all. But if anyone would mind giving us, and I mean me, specifically, a real explanation, that'd be great. What are you doing here? What's the deal with the other creepy robots? And most importantly," he pointed a finger, "what's in it for us?" "Eddie," Double D hissed. "What? I'm being pragmatic." A respectful silence fell over the group. Conversations died. The Dinobots stopped poking at Ed. Even Ratchet muted his grumbling. All optics turned to their leader. Optimus Prime knelt down, bringing his face closer to their level. Up close, the boys could see the scars on his metal, not just battle damage, but age. Millennia of weight pressed into every seam. "You have earned the right to hear it," he said, his voice a low, gentle rumble. "All of it." A holographic emitter in his chest activated, painting images in the dusty air. The Eds gasped. It showed a planet unlike anything they'd ever seen, towers of crystal and metal reaching toward space, bridges of light spanning impossible distances, cities that seemed alive with glowing circuitry. "Cybertron," Optimus said. "Our home. In the beginning, our creator, Primus, sacrificed his physical form to become our world and give life to our race. First among us were the 13 original primes." The images shifted. A golden age. Robots building, creating, thriving. Then, darker images. Strange, five-faced creatures looming over bound prisoners. A robot in golden armor kneeling before them, chains of light binding his wrists. "The Quintessence," Optimus continued, his voice hardening. "They came as traitors. They stayed as conquerors. They enslaved our planet, perverted our history, and ruled us for centuries. We were not born warriors, we were made into them." The hologram shifted again, showing two figures. One was a dock worker, blue and red, carrying cargo. The other was a giant, scarred gladiator, gray and brutal, roaring in an arena. "Orion Pax," Optimus said, pointing to the dock worker. "In D16, he pointed to the gladiator. "Brothers in arms. Idealists. We dreamed of a better Cybertron, free from the Quintessence, free from the corruption that had rotted our society from within." The images showed them fighting side by side, rising through the ranks, discovering the truth about the primes. "We found a leader, Sentinel Prime. He was supposed to guide us. Instead, Optimus's optics dimmed. He betrayed us, sold Cybertron back to the Quintessence for power." Double D's hand flew to his mouth. "That's monstrous. We were given the gift of transformation, RT Cogs, by the last loyal primes. D16 and I received ours together. But where I saw hope, he saw only rage." The hologram showed the gladiator, now calling himself Megatronus, standing over Sentinel's broken body, his fist still raised from the killing blow. He executed Sentinel in front of all of Cybertron. It was supposed to be justice. It became the first step into darkness. The story turned. Images flashed faster. War. Destruction. Orion Pax, mortally wounded, throwing himself into the core of Cybertron to save it, and emerging transformed, burning with blue light. I became Optimus Prime that day, he said quietly. And I lost my brother. Ed was openly crying now, tears streaming down his face. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. We fought the Quintessence together, Autobot and Decepticon, united. But the truce was fragile. The hologram showed two symbols, red and purple, clashing. Megatron's vision was conquest, tyranny. A Cybertron forged through strength alone. Mine was freedom, choice. We could not reconcile. So we fought. For centuries. For millennia. Until our world was drained of its lifeblood, energon, and we were forced to flee. The hologram showed the Ark and the Nemesis, two ships spiraling through space, locked in combat. Then, atmosphere. Fire. Crash. We fell to your world. Entered emergency stasis. And slept. Optimus looked at the three boys. Until you woke us. The hologram faded. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Eddie, for once in his life, had nothing to say. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. So, he finally managed. Sentinel guy. Total jerk. I mean, normally I'd say he had it coming, but, he stopped, looked at Optimus's face, and for once showed something resembling tact. But, yeah, that's rough, buddy. Double D removed his hat, holding it over his chest. To be so consumed by vengeance that you tear your entire world apart. His voice was soft, horrified. It shows how the darkest parts of someone can eclipse all the good. Megatron wasn't always a monster. He became one. Which is why he must be stopped, Optimus said. Before he does the same to your world. Ed, who had been silently crying, suddenly lunged forward and wrapped his arms around Optimus's massive leg. You lost your home and your brother, he bawled, squeezing with all his might. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. Optimus looked down at the emotional boy. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, with incredible gentleness, he reached down and patted Ed's head with the tip of his finger. It is a loss we carry every day, he said softly. But it is a reminder of why we fight. So that others do not suffer the same. A beep from Ratchet's console broke the moment. The sun has set, the medic announced, pointing to a display showing the outside world. Their organic circadian rhythms suggest they require rest. And food. And shelter. And. We get it, Doc, Jazz interrupted. The little dudes need beauty sleep. Hey, Eddie protested. I'll have you know I'm naturally. Don't finish that sentence, Double D warned. Wheeljack stepped forward, rubbing his hands together. Hey, why don't we give you boys a ride home? Consider it a thank you. We could use guides to this world, local customs, geography, where to find the good fuel stations, and you could use. He glanced at Optimus. Guardians. Oh, that would be most delightful. Double D immediately pointed at Wheeljack. Dibs. I call dibs on the scientist. I call dibs on the big one. Ed yelled, pointing at Bulkhead, who had been trying to quietly retreat to a corner. Me. Bulkhead pointed at himself. You're like a house. But a robot. I've always wanted to be a house. And I, Eddie announced, already striding toward Jazz with the confidence of someone about to make a terrible decision, I'm riding with the cool one. Jazz grinned. Kid, you and me. We're gonna get along just fine. Autobots, Optimus Prime's voice echoed through the chamber as they transformed, metal folding, shifting, reshaping into vehicles. Engines purred to life. Keep to the shadows. Observe the rules of this world. And keep our new friends safe. Bulkhead rumbled out of the junkyard first, Ed hanging out the window with his tongue flapping in the wind. Faster. Faster. I want to feel the wind in my. He paused. Wait, I don't have hair. Faster anyway. Wheeljack followed, his sleek form gliding over the rough terrain. Inside, Double D was running his hands over every surface, muttering to himself about torque ratios and energy conversion efficiencies. So, Wheeljack said, you mentioned 700 questions. 712 now that I've seen your suspension system. Jazz peeled out last, his engine roaring with a cool, rhythmic purr. Eddie sat in the passenger seat, hands hovering over the steering wheel he wasn't actually controlling. All right, Eddie said, trying to act casual. So, Jazz. Cool name, by the way. Very slick. What's the going rate for, Intergalactic Protection Services? Asking for a friend. Jazz laughed, a low, musical sound. Kid, you couldn't afford us. Challenge accepted. Deep within the converted hydroelectric power plant, the scene was starkly different. The air hummed with raw, converted energy. Conveyor belts clanked rhythmically, spitting out glowing, purple cubes of refined energon. Decepticon soldiers marched in formation, their footsteps echoing off metal walls that had not been there the day before. Megatron stood on a high platform, arms crossed, watching his war machine stir to life. His crimson optics swept over the operation with cold satisfaction. Energy output has increased by 43%, Lord Megatron, Starscream reported, hovering nearby. His voice dripped with false deference. The Constructicons have outdone themselves. Again. Not that I'm surprised, they are, after all, competent. Your jealousy is showing, Starscream, Megatron said without looking at him. I'm not jealous. I'm observational. An alert flashed on the main console. Soundwave, ever silent, ever watching, manipulated the controls with practiced efficiency. A satellite image appeared on the main screen, enhanced, analyzed, zoomed. 3 distinct vehicles. A pickup. A sports car. A concept vehicle. Leaving the exact geographical coordinates of the Ark's crash site. Soundwave didn't need to speak. The image was evidence enough. Starscream's optics widened. The Autobots. Now. But the stasis, the damage, how could they? Silence. Megatron turned slowly, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the command deck. A low, rumbling growl started deep in his chest. Not anger, but something far more dangerous. Anticipation. His lips curled back into a vicious, triumphant smirk. His crimson optics blazed with a familiar, hateful fire, the kind that had burned for 4 million years without dimming. So, he purred, the word dripping with malice, rolling off his tongue like molten metal. The Autobots have awakened. He stepped down from the platform, each footfall shaking the deck. Let the hunt begin. He turned to face his assembled army, Constructicons, Combaticons, soldiers of every shape and size. Decepticons. Megatron's voice boomed, echoing through every corridor, every chamber, every spark aboard the Nemesis. Our ancient enemies have stirred from their slumber. They believe they can hide on this primitive world. They believe they can protect these fragile organic creatures. He slammed a fist into his palm. They are wrong. Starscream's smirk returned, hidden behind a mask of loyalty. And what of the humans, Lord Megatron? The ones who aided them. Megatron's optics narrowed. They are collateral. Outside, thunder rolled across the night sky. But it wasn't thunder. It was the sound of war machines awakening. Chapter 3, First Contact Fallout. The cul-de-sac of Peach Creek had seen many strange things. It had seen eddies, invisible goldfish, scam, refunds were not issued. It had seen Ed wrestle a raccoon for a bag of chips and win. It had seen Rolf challenge the neighborhood to a traditional shepherd's duel, involving a live chicken and a garden hose. But nothing had prepared it for 3 giant robots rolling down the street at 11 p.m. on a school night. Bulkhead stopped first, his massive tires crunching against the curb outside Ed's house. His engine rumbled to a halt with a sound like a sleeping dragon. We're here, Ed announced, tumbling out of the passenger side with all the grace of a sack of potatoes. Mom, Dad, Sarah, we have guests. Ed, wait, maybe we should. Double D started from inside Wheeljack, but it was too late. The front door of Ed's house flew open. Sarah stood in the doorway, wearing pink pajamas and an expression that could curdle milk. Behind her, Ed's parents peered over her shoulder with the exhausted confusion of people who had long since given up understanding their son. Ed, Sarah shrieked. Do you know what time it is? Ed pointed triumphantly at Bulkhead. Look, I made a friend. Bulkhead, who had been trying to look inconspicuous, which is difficult when you're a 3-story green robot, gave a hesitant wave. Hi, I'm Bulkhead. I like bridges. Sarah stared. Ed's mother stared. Ed's father slowly closed the door, opened it again, and closed it once more. Mom, Sarah screamed. There's a giant robot in our yard. I can see that, Sarah. Is it going to eat us? I don't know. I would not eat you, Bulkhead said, offended. You're very small. That would be like eating a single potato chip. What's even the point? Across the cul-de-sac, Eddie was having his own problems. Jazz had transformed back into robot mode with a flourish, striking a pose that would have made a professional wrestler jealous. "So, little man, this is your crib." "It's not a crib," Eddie said, trying to regain control of the situation. "It's a house. And my brother's probably inside, so if you could just—" The front door burst open. Eddie's older brother, a shadowy figure known only as the brother, stood in the doorway, a jawbreaker in his mouth and a magazine in his hand. He looked at Jazz. He looked at Eddie. He looked back at Jazz. "Eddie, yeah, you want to explain why there's a 7-foot-tall robot doing the Thriller pose in our driveway?" "I am not doing the Thriller pose," Jazz said, immediately shifting into a different pose. "This is original. Patent pending." The brother stared for another long moment. Then he shrugged, turned around, and walked back inside. "Keep it down," he yelled over his shoulder. "I'm trying to read." Eddie blinked. "That's it. That's all you have to say. You brought home a talking car last summer and tried to sell it to Kevin for $50. This is barely weirder." Jazz looked at Eddie. "Your family's got range, kid. You have no idea." Double D, meanwhile, was attempting damage control. "Mother, father, I can explain." "Is that a robot?" his mother asked, peering through the living room curtains. "Technically, he's an autonomous robotic organism from the planet Cybertron, and his name is Wheeljack, and he's a scientist, and—" "Does he have a permit?" Double D paused. "A permit? For being a robot? In our driveway? At 11 o'clock at night?" His mother folded her arms. "Edward, you know the homeowners association has rules." "Mother, the homeowners association does not have jurisdiction over extraterrestrial." "I'm sure we can work something out," Wheeljack interjected, holding up what looked like a small, glowing cube. "Would the lady of the house accept a small energy stabilizer as a gesture of goodwill? It reduces electrical bills by 40%. Double D's mother squinted at the cube. Then at Wheeljack. Then back at the cube. "Come inside. Both of you. And wipe your feet." Wheeljack looked down at his metal feet. "I don't think I have." "Wipe them." By morning, the secret was out. Not because the Autobots were careless. Not because the Eds couldn't keep a secret though they couldn't. But because Ed, in his excitement, had called everyone. Kevin, wake up. We have giant space robots. Rolf, come see. They're made of metal and they're friendly. Jimmy, do you want to meet a robot that turns into a car? By 7 a.m., the Cul-de-Sac was a circus. Kevin stood in his driveway, arms crossed, bike abandoned beside him. "Okay, no. Just, no. There is no way these are real. I am literally standing right here," Bumblebee said, his horns beeping indignantly. "You could be a really good animatronic. Like at that pizza place." "Less than I am not a pizza animatronic." Greater than Bumblebee's datapad flashed the words angrily. "Less than I have feelings." Greater than. Robots don't have feelings. Less than do you want to see my feelings? I will show you my feelings. They are made of lasers. Greater than. Jimmy, hiding behind Naz, pointed at RC with trembling fingers. Is that one a girl robot?" RC's optics narrowed. "I'm going to pretend you didn't just assume my gender based on my chassis." Jimmy, apologize to the robot lady. Naz hissed. "I'm sorry, robot lady." Rolf, meanwhile, had taken a different approach. He stood in the middle of the street, a garden hoe in one hand and a live weasel in the other, staring down Grimlock. "You," Rolf bellowed. "You are the largest metal beast that Rolf has ever seen. State your business in the cul-de-sac of peace." Grimlock, who had been enjoying a quiet morning nap, slowly opened one optic. Grimlock hungry. Rolf has chicken. Will that satisfy the metal beast? Grimlock, like chicken. Then you shall have chicken. And also this weasel. He is named Victor and he bites. The weasel, Victor, immediately latched onto Grimlock's toe. Grimlock looked down at it with something approaching wonder. Grimlock keep Victor. By noon, Optimus Prime had called a meeting. He stood in the center of the cul-de-sac, surrounded by Autobots and children alike, his blue optics sweeping over the chaos with patient understanding. "I understand this is unusual," he began. "Unusual," Kevin snapped. "Dude, my bike is scared of you people." Your bike is a bicycle, Kevin, Double D pointed out. It doesn't have emotions. You don't know that. Optimus raised a hand, and the bickering stopped. Not because anyone was afraid, though they were, a little, but because something in his voice commanded attention. We did not come to your world by choice, he said quietly. We came as refugees. As survivors. We seek only to repair our ship, gather resources, and return home. But we cannot do that alone. He looked at the children, the Eds, Kevin, Rolf, Naz, Jimmy, Johnny, and even Plank, who was somehow giving the impression of paying close attention. We need allies, friends, people who know this world better than we do. He knelt, bringing himself to their level. Will you help us? The silence stretched. Kevin shuffled his feet. I guess. But if you break anything, my dad's gonna bill you. He bills everyone. The urban ranger of Peach Creek accepts your request for alliance. Rolf declared, thrusting his garden hoe into the air. But there are conditions. The metal beasts must respect the sacred traditions of the old country. I don't know what that means, Grimlock said, but Grimlock will try. Jimmy raised his hand. Can I pet one of you? Pet. Sideswipe looked confused. I don't think that's how it. Jimmy was already petting Sideswipe's arm. You're smooth. Like a dolphin. But metal. I have never been compared to a dolphin before. I don't hate it. Naz stepped forward, hands on her hips. Okay, but seriously, what's the deal? You're not just here to make friends, right? There's something else. Optimus's expression darkened. You're perceptive. My mom's a lawyer. I can smell a hidden agenda from a mile away. The Autobot leader exchanged glances with Ratchet, with Jazz, with Bumblebee. Then he nodded. The Decepticons, he said, are enemies. They crashed here as well, somewhere on this planet. And they will not be content to hide. They will seek energy, resources, power. He pulled up a holographic map of Peach Creek. A single location pulsed red. The hydroelectric power plant. It's the largest energy source in the region. If the Decepticons take it, they could power their whole operation, Double D finished, his face pale. And use our town as a battleground. Wait. Eddie held up his hands. You're telling me that not only are there giant alien robots living in our junkyard, but there are also evil giant alien robots who want to blow up our power plant. That is, a simplified version, but yes. Eddie looked at Optimus. Then at the other Autobots. Then at the Cul-de-Sac kids, who were all staring at him like he had grown a second head. How much do you pay? Eddie. Double D shrieked. I'm just asking. Deep within the power plant, something stirred. Not the Decepticons, not yet. They were still planning, still building, still gathering strength. But the plant itself was old. Older than anyone knew. And deep beneath its humming generators, buried under layers of concrete and steel and time, a different kind of machine waited. It had been there for centuries. Sleeping, dreaming, growing. And now, with the arrival of Cybertronian energy signatures, both Autobot and Decepticon, it was beginning to wake. In the control room, a single light flickered on a long-abandoned console. No one noticed. Not yet. Chapter 4, Decepticon Attack. The Peach Creek hydroelectric power plant was not supposed to be exciting. It was a place of concrete, turbines, and bored tour guides reading from laminated scripts. School field trips came here to learn about renewable energy, and infrastructure maintenance, and other words that made children's eyes glaze over like donuts. But today was different. Today, Sarah and Jimmy were on that field trip. And somewhere deep beneath the plant, something ancient was waking up. 9:47 a.m., the power plant parking lot. So let me get this straight, Kevin said, arms crossed, leaning against his bike. You want us to, and I'm quoting here, infiltrate the power plant and warn the civilians before the Decepticons turn it into a fortress of doom. That is, an accurate summary, Bumblebee admitted. And you can't do it yourselves because we're 7-foot-tall robots who turn into cars, greater than Bumblebee's datapad flashed. Less than we are not subtle. Greater than. Neither is Ed. Ed, who had been trying to eat a rock, looked up. I can be very subtle. Watch. He crouched behind a mailbox. The mailbox immediately tipped over and fell on his head. The mailbox betrayed me. Double D pinched the bridge of his nose. What Bumblebee is trying to say is that the Autobots need us to act as liaisons, diplomatic intermediaries between their forces and the human population. We can enter the plant, locate Sarah and Jimmy, and evacuate them before any unpleasantness occurs. Unpleasantness, Eddie repeated. He means explosions. Big ones. With lasers. I was trying to be optimistic. Optimism doesn't pay, sockhead. Explosions pay. Eventually. If you monetize them correctly. Optimus Prime knelt down, bringing his optics level with the Eds. Behind him, the other Autobots waited in vehicle mode, hiding in plain sight among the parked cars and delivery trucks. This mission is not about combat, Optimus said, his voice low and serious. It is about protection. There are innocent lives in that building. Children, families, people who have no idea what is coming. He looked at each of the Eds in turn. I would not ask this of you if there was another way. But you know this place. You know its people. And you have proven, in your own unique way, that you are capable of more than you realize. Eddie puffed out his chest. Yeah, we're very capable. Capable of. Please don't say, scamming, Double D whispered. Strategic resource acquisition. Eddie. What? I'm rebranding. 10:02 a.m., inside the power plant. The tour was exactly as boring as Sarah had expected. Jimmy was taking notes. Actual notes. On paper. Like some kind of nerd. And the turbines convert kinetic energy into electrical energy at approximately 93% efficiency, the tour guide droned, pointing at a spinning metal cylinder. This facility provides power to over 40,000 homes in the Tri-County area. Sarah yawned dramatically. Fascinating. Can we go now? Sarah, we've only been here for 15 minutes. 15 minutes too long, Jimmy. The tour guide, a tired-looking man named Gary who had clearly given up on life sometime in the 1990s, continued his script. If you'll follow me, we'll proceed to the secondary generator room, where we keep our backup systems in case of. The lights flickered. Everyone stopped. That's not supposed to happen, Gary said. The lights flickered again, then went out entirely. Children screamed. Teachers shouted. Somewhere in the darkness, Jimmy dropped his notebook and made a sound like a frightened guinea pig. Everybody stay calm, Gary yelled. It's probably just a. The emergency lights kicked on, red, pulsing, casting long shadows across the walls. And with the emergency lights came the sound. Clank, 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 heavy footsteps, rhythmic, methodical, wrong. Something was walking through the plant. Something big. 10:07 a.m., the service entrance. The Eds slipped through the loading dock door like shadows. Eddie tripped over a pallet. Ed walked through a stack of boxes like they weren't there. Double D opened the door like a normal person and walked through calmly. It was, objectively, a mess. Okay, Eddie whispered, crouching behind a forklift. We find Sarah and Jimmy, we grab them, we get out. Easy. Nothing is ever easy with you, Double D hissed. That's because I aim for profitable. Different metric. Grimlock thinks you talk too much. Everyone froze. Grimlock was standing behind them. Grimlock. Double D shrieked, jumping 3 feet in the air. What are you doing here? Grimlock came to help. The Dinobot leader crossed his arms, which looked like crossing 2 small cars. Optimus Prime said, protect the humans. Grimlock protects the humans. First of all, it's Optimus. Grimlock knows what Grimlock said. And second of all, you're 18 feet tall. How are you supposed to be subtle? Grimlock looked down at himself. Then at Double D. Then back at himself. Grimlock will crouch. He crouched. He was still 12 feet tall. That's not better. 10:11 a.m., the generator room. The Decepticons had arrived. Scrapper stood at the front of the generator room, his green and purple frame gleaming under the emergency lights. Behind him, Bonecrusher, Scavenger, Mixmaster, Hook, and Long Haul fanned out. The 6 Constructicons, the architects of Megatron's new empire. Secure the facility, Scrapper ordered, his voice cold and mechanical. No one leaves. No one enters. And if anyone resists, we crush them. Bonecrusher roared, slamming his fists together. I was going to say, detain them peacefully, but yes, thank you, Bonecrusher. Crushing is more fun. The tour group huddled behind a row of control panels, children crying, teachers whispering panicked prayers. Gary the tour guide was trying to dial 911, but his hands were shaking too much. "Pete, please," he stammered, we're just a school group." Scrapper looked at him, then at the children, then back at him. "You are civilians," Scrapper said. "You have no value to the Decepticon cause. Surrender peacefully, and you will not be harmed." "Speak for yourself," Bonecrusher muttered. Bonecrusher. "I'm just saying." Sarah, hiding behind a turbine housing, grabbed Jimmy's arm. Jimmy, we need to run." "Run where?" "Anywhere that doesn't have giant robots in it. There are giant robots everywhere now. This is our life." 10:14 a.m., the maintenance corridor. Eddie peeked around the corner, saw the Constructicons, and immediately retreated. Nope, we are not doing this. Eddie, Sarah and Jimmy are in there. Double D hissed. Then they're dead. We'll send flowers. Expensive ones. With the little ribbons. Grimlock will fight, Grimlock announced, already stomping toward the generator room. No fighting. Double D grabbed onto Grimlock's leg, which was like trying to stop a freight train with a wet noodle. The mission is evacuation, not engagement. Grimlock can do both. Grimlock. Everyone stopped. Ed had spoken. The big kid stood in the middle of the corridor, his face unusually serious. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't eating something he shouldn't. He was just looking at Grimlock. "Sarah's in there," Ed said quietly. "My little sister. She's annoying. She calls me names. She breaks my stuff." He paused. "But she's my sister. And I'm not leaving without her." Grimlock stared at Ed for a long moment. Then, slowly, the Dinobot's face split into something that might have been a smile. Grimlock understands. He turned back toward the generator room. Grimlock will not fight. Grimlock will distract. You get small humans. Then we leave. Double D blinked. That's actually a surprisingly sound tactical plan. Grimlock has layers. I'm starting to see that. 10:18 a.m., the generator room. Grimlock burst through the wall like a metal meteor. Concrete shattered. Rebar twisted. The Constructicons scattered, shouting in surprise and fury. "What?" Scrapper stumbled backward, his optics wide. "That's a Dinobot." "Grimlock is the Dinobot." Grimlock roared, spreading his arms wide. "And Grimlock is bored. WHO wants to play." Bonecrusher charged immediately. I'll play with your spark." Bonecrusher, no. Bonecrusher, yes. The two giants collided, metal screeching against metal, sending sparks cascading across the generator room. The other Constructicons hesitated, and in that hesitation, the Eds made their move. "Sarah," Ed shouted, running through the chaos like a fullback through a defensive line. "Jimmy, over here." "Ed." Sarah's head popped up from behind the turbine housing. "What are you doing here?" "Rescuing you. You can't rescue anything. You once got stuck in a mailbox. That mailbox was poorly designed." Jimmy was already running, dragging Sarah by the arm. "I don't care, WHO rescues us. Let's just go." The children scattered, some following the Eds, others running in blind panic, teachers trying and failing to maintain order. Gary the tour guide had given up entirely and was now hiding behind a vending machine, eating stale chips. "This way," Double D shouted, pointing toward the service exit. Everyone toward the. A massive green and purple hand grabbed him by the collar. "Going somewhere." Mixmaster grinned down at Double D, his chemical-stained chassis dripping with unknown substances. "I've never melted an organic before. This should be educational." "Put him down." Ed charged. Not at Mixmaster, at a fire extinguisher on the wall. He ripped it off its bracket, aimed it directly at Mixmaster's face, and unleashed hell. Or, more accurately, carbon dioxide. What is, I can't see." Mixmaster stumbled backward, clawing at his optics, releasing Double D in the process. Ed grabbed his friend and kept running. "Ed, that was incredibly reckless. Thank you." It wasn't a compliment. 10:23 a.m., the parking lot. The Autobots were already in position. Optimus Prime stood at the front of the parking lot, his ion cannon charged and ready. Behind him, Bumblebee, RC, Sideswipe, and the other ground vehicles had transformed, forming a defensive perimeter. "We have civilians incoming," Ratchet reported, his sensors scanning the building. "Approximately 37 life signs. Moving toward the east exit. Protect them," Optimus ordered. "Engage the Decepticons only if." The wall exploded. Grimlock came flying through it, literally flying, launched by Bonecrusher's massive fists. He crashed into a row of parked cars, sending them flipping end over end. "Grimlock is fine," he shouted, giving a thumbs up from the wreckage. "This is fun. Decepticons. Attack." Scrapper emerged from the smoke, his fellow Constructicons flanking him. Behind them, more Decepticons poured out of the power plant. Ground soldiers, heavy weapons, the full might of Megatron's advance force. Optimus Prime raised his ion cannon. "Autobots," he said, his voice carrying across the battlefield, "roll out." And the Cul-de-Sac became a war zone. 10:31 a.m., the battle. Lasers flew. Metal screamed. Cars exploded. Fortunately, they were mostly the Decepticons. Bumblebee zipped between Bonecrusher's legs, firing at his joints. "Hey, ugly. Over here. I will step on you, insect. Less than you'll have to catch me first. Greater than." RC dual-wielded energy blades, cutting through Decepticon soldiers like a dancer through fog. Sideswipe. On your left. Got it. Sideswipe spun, his shoulder-mounted cannons blazing, dropping 2 ground soldiers before they could flank Optimus. But the Constructicons were the real threat. "Form Devastator," Scrapper shouted. The 6 giants moved, shifting, combining, merging into a single, towering colossus. Devastator stood taller than the power plant itself, his single optic glowing with malevolent intelligence. "Devastator," the giant rumbled, his voice like an earthquake. Optimus Prime looked up at the monster. Then he looked at the Eds, who were herding children toward the tree line. "Eddie," Optimus shouted, "get them out of here. Now." Eddie didn't argue. For once in his life, he didn't try to negotiate or scam or weasel his way into a better deal. He just ran. "Come on, suckers, I mean, civilians. This way. Movement is free. Actually free. No charge. Yet. You're still doing it." Double D screamed, dragging Jimmy by the collar. "Old habits." 10:38 a.m., the tree line. The children were safe. Most of them, anyway. A few had wandered off into the woods, but Ratchet and Red Alert were already tracking them. The teachers were doing head counts, calling parents, trying to process the fact that their field trip had turned into a robot war. Sarah sat on a log, arms crossed, glaring at Ed. "You knew about the robots. Technically, we met them last night. And you didn't tell me. You were asleep. Wake me up next time." Jimmy was hyperventilating into a paper bag that Naz had produced from somewhere. I saw a giant robot made of other robots." "That was Devastator," Double D said, trying to be helpful. "He's a combination of the 6 Constructicons. It's actually quite fascinating from an engineering perspective." "I don't care about the engineering perspective." Eddie, for his part, was staring at the battle. Devastator was tearing through the Autobot lines, throwing Bumblebee like a baseball, swatting Sideswipe out of the air. Optimus was fighting, really fighting, but even he couldn't match the combined might of 6 Decepticons working as one. "This is bad," Eddie muttered. "This is terrible," Double D agreed. "No, I mean really bad. Like, they're going to lose, bad. That's what terrible means." Ed stood up. "Where are you going?" Sarah demanded. "To help." "Sit down, you moron. You can't help. You're 12. Ed looked at his sister. Then at the battle. Then back at his sister. "Maybe," he said quietly. "But I'm not going to just watch." And before anyone could stop him, Ed ran back toward the power plant. "Ed!" Double D shouted. "Ed!" Sarah shouted. "Ed!" Eddie shouted, then groaned, slapped his forehead, and started running after him. Fine, I'm coming. But I'm billing you for therapy." Double D looked at the children. Looked at the battle. Looked at the children again. "Stay here," he said to no one in particular. "Don't move. Don't talk to strangers. And if a giant robot asks you to come with them, say no." Then he ran too. 10:42 a.m., the power plant roof. Ed climbed the fire escape like a monkey on a mission. "Ed, what are you doing?" Eddie shouted from below. "I don't know. But it feels right. That's never a good sign. Double D caught up, gasping for breath. Ed, please, whatever you're planning, reconsider. No time. Ed reached the roof. Devastator was right there, close enough to touch, close enough to see the individual components straining against each other. The giant's single optic swept across the battlefield, tracking Optimus as the Autobot leader dodged another crushing blow. Hey! Ed shouted. Devastator's optic snapped toward him. What is that? The giant rumbled. I'm Ed, and I'm annoying. Ed picked up a loose piece of gravel and threw it at Devastator's face. It bounced off harmlessly. But the audacity, the sheer, impossible nerve, made Devastator pause. Did that organic just throw a rock at me? Yeah. Ed threw another one. And I'll do it again. Devastator's optic narrowed. You insignificant. He raised his fist to crush Ed. And Ed moved. Not away. Toward. He ran directly at Devastator's foot, slid between the giant's legs, and popped up on the other side, waving his arms. Over here. I'm over here. You can't catch me. I'm too fast. You are not fast. Eddie screamed from below. You have the agility of a refrigerator. Thank you. It wasn't. But Devastator was distracted. And in that moment of distraction, Optimus Prime saw his opening. Autobots. He roared. Concentrate fire on the joints. Lasers converged on the points where the Constructicons connected, the seams between Scrapper and Bonecrusher, the linkages between Mixmaster and Long Haul. Devastator staggered, his components screaming in pain. No, we cannot. The giant broke apart. Scrapper, Bonecrusher, Scavenger, Mixmaster, Hook, and Long Haul collapsed in a heap, groaning and sparking, their combination shattered. Fall back. Scrapper ordered, dragging Bonecrusher to his feet. Fall back to the Nemesis. The Decepticons retreated, fleeing into the power plant, disappearing into the shadows, leaving their wounded behind. Optimus Prime stood in the center of the parking lot, his chassis smoking, his optics dim. But he was standing. Ed, he said, looking up at the boy on the roof. That was brave. Ed beamed. I was very brave. Also very scared. I think I peed a little. Ed. Double D shrieked. What? It's the truth. 11:15 a.m., the aftermath. The power plant was secured. The Decepticons had retreated, for now, and the children were safe. Parents arrived in waves, crying, shouting, hugging their kids like they'd never let go. Sarah, for the first time in her life, hugged Ed without being forced to. You're an idiot, she whispered into his chest. I know. A complete and total moron. I know. Don't ever do that again. I can't make any promises. She punched his arm, then hugged him tighter. Eddie stood off to the side, counting something on his fingers. Okay, so, evacuation fees, danger pay, combat bonus, plus the, I almost died, surcharge, that comes to, approximately all of the money. You're not getting paid, Double D said flatly. Watch me. Optimus Prime approached the Eds, his frame battered but unbowed. Behind him, the other Autobots gathered, tired, wounded, but alive. You have proven yourselves today, Optimus said, kneeling down. Not as children, not as bystanders, but as allies. He extended his hand. The war for Earth has begun. And I would be honored to fight it alongside you. Eddie looked at the massive metal hand. Then at Double D. Then at Ed, who was still grinning like a maniac. Fine, Eddie said, shaking Optimus's finger, the only part he could reach. But I'm expensing everything. Noted. Everything. Noted. Deep beneath the power plant, something smiled. Not literally, it didn't have a mouth. Not yet, but it had felt the battle. The energy. The violence. It had tasted the sparks of Cybertronian metal, the heat of their weapons, the fear of the fleeing humans. And it was hungry. The ancient machine stirred in its tomb, its systems flickering to life for the first time in millennia. Soon, it thought. Soon. Chapter 5, The Junkyard Fortress. The morning after the battle, Peach Creek woke up to a problem. Well, several problems. Problem 1. The power plant was a wreck. Half the county was without electricity, and the news vans had arrived before sunrise, their satellite trucks lining the roads like metal mushrooms. Problem 2. Nobody could agree on what had actually happened. The official story, a freak gas main explosion combined with a seismic event, wasn't fooling anyone. Not with the claw marks on the walls. Not with the laser burns on the pavement. Problem 3. The Autobots needed a place to hide. And the only place big enough, remote enough, and already filled with scrap metal was the Peach Creek junkyard. 7:15 a.m., the junkyard office. The junkyard had an office. Sort of. It was a rusty trailer from the 1970s, balanced on cinder blocks, surrounded by stacks of old tires and broken appliances. The sign on the door read, "Management," in peeling letters, though no one had ever actually managed anything here. Eddie kicked the door open. "All right, listen up. This is prime real estate." "It's a junkyard," Double D interrupted. "Prime real estate with character. It's where things go to die. And I'm willing to offer you an exclusive rental agreement. Low rates. Flexible terms. No questions asked about the giant robots." Optimus Prime, who had to crouch to fit under the trailer's awning, looked down at Eddie with something approaching amusement. "You wish to charge us for shelter? Hey, nothing in life is free, big guy. You want a roof. You want security. You want protection from the elements." Eddie spread his arms. "That costs." "Eddie, we're aliens," Hot Rod said, leaning against a stack of crushed cars. "We don't even know what your money looks like." "Then you'll learn. It's a valuable life skill." Bumblebee beaked something that sounded suspiciously like laughter. "Less than I like this one. He's got spark. Greater than. Spark, scam, same thing." Wheeljack, meanwhile, was already exploring the junkyard with the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy store. "Do you have any idea how much useful material is in here? This is a gold mine. The raw alloys alone." "Please don't take apart my house," Double D said weakly. "Your house is made of aluminum siding. That's not a house, that's a snack. It's a rental." 8 a.m., the hidden bunker. Beneath the junkyard, buried under decades of rust and refuse, the Autobots found something unexpected. A bunker. Not Cybertronian. Not human. Something else. The entrance was hidden under a collapsed storage shed, buried under 3 feet of dirt and old tires. But Wheeljack's sensors had picked up the energy signature, faint, ancient, but unmistakably artificial. "Optimus," Wheeljack called, his optics bright with excitement. "You need to see this." The Autobots gathered around the entrance, a circular hatch made of dark metal, covered in symbols no one recognized. Ratchet ran his scanners over it, frowning. "This alloy isn't in any database. Not Cybertronian, not quintessent, not human. It's older." "How old?" Optimus asked. "I can't get a precise reading. The half-life decay suggests millions of years. Maybe more." "Millions." Eddie pushed to the front. "You mean there's been a secret bunker under our junkyard for millions of years?" "That's what the science suggests. And nobody knew. The junkyard has only existed for 40 years, Double D pointed out. Before that, this was just a field," Eddie finished. "A field with a secret bunker under it." The implications hung in the air. Optimus stepped forward, placing his hand on the hatch. The symbols glowed in response, a soft, pulsing blue, and the hatch opened. Inside, darkness, and stairs, and the faint smell of ozone. "Autobots," Optimus said, "we go together." "Ooh, dramatic," Ed whispered. "I like it." 8:15 a.m., the bunker interior. The bunker was huge. Not just big, huge. The stairs led down to a cavernous chamber, easily large enough to house all the Autobots with room to spare. The walls were lined with ancient machinery, dormant but intact, humming with residual power. "Incredible," Wheeljack breathed, already running to examine a console. "The engineering, the energy signatures, this is millennia beyond anything we've seen." "Focus, Wheeljack." Optimus surveyed the chamber, his optics scanning for threats. "Is it safe?" "Safe. Safe." Wheeljack laughed. "Optimus, this isn't just safe, this is a gift. The structural integrity alone, we could use this as a base. A real base. Hidden, fortified, perfectly defensible." "Perfectly defensible," Eddie repeated, his eyes turning into dollar signs. "You know what that means." "Tax evasion," Ed guessed. "Actually, yes, but also strategic value." Double D was already examining the walls, running his fingers over the ancient symbols. "These markings, they're not writing. They're diagrams. Schematics. Someone built this place for a purpose. What purpose? I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. 9:30 a.m., the surface. While the Autobots explored their new home, the Cul-de-Sac kids gathered in Eddie's backyard. So, Kevin said, arms crossed, let me get this straight. The robots are living in the junkyard now. Temporarily, Double D said. And there's a secret bunker under the junkyard. Apparently. And you didn't think to tell anyone. We only found out this morning. Kevin stared at him, then at Eddie, then at Ed, who was trying to teach a rock to fetch. This is insane. Welcome to our lives, Eddie said. Can we focus? We have a business opportunity here. A business opportunity. Yeah, the Autobots need stuff, supplies, materials, energon. And we, Eddie pointed at himself, then at the other kids, or the suppliers. You want us to sell things to the robots. I want us to sell things to the robots for a significant markup. There's a difference. Naz raised her hand. What's energon? Robot food. Basically. They can't eat our food, wrong chemical composition, so they need this purple energy stuff to survive. And where do we get this purple energy stuff? Eddie's smile widened. That's the beautiful part. We make it. How? I'm still working on that part. 10 a.m., the power plant ruins restricted zone. Rolf did not believe in restricted zones. Rolf believed in the old ways. The traditions of his ancestors. The sacred duty of the shepherd to protect the flock, even when the flock was a bunch of terrified children hiding behind a vending machine. Come forth, cowardly robot beasts. Rolf shouted, waving his garden hoe at the boarded-up power plant. Rolf challenges you to a duel of honor. Rolf, please, Jimmy hissed from behind a tree. They'll hear you. Let them hear. Let them tremble. Rolf fears no. A massive purple hand burst through the boarded-up door. Jimmy screamed. Rolf raised his hoe, and Starscream stepped out. The Decepticon Air Commander was not in a good mood. His frame was scorched from the previous day's battle. His optics were dim with exhaustion, and he had just spent the night listening to Megatron's victory speeches, which were, technically, about retreating, but Megatron had reframed it as strategic repositioning. What? Starscream said flatly, is that? He was looking at Rolf. I am Rolf, son of a shepherd, defender of the cul-de-sac. It's holding a garden tool. It is the hoe of justice. Starscream turned to look at the other Decepticons. Skywarp was laughing. Thundercracker looked confused. Soundwave, as always, was impossible to read. Should I kill it? Starscream asked. Recommendation. Negative, Soundwave said. Organic may have tactical value. Tactical value. It's a child with a gardening implement. The child is unafraid. Fearlessness can be weaponized. Starscream stared at Soundwave, then at Rolf, then back at Soundwave. I hate this planet. 10:15 a.m., the Nemesis Mobile Command. Megatron stood before his war map, his crimson optics tracing the locations of Autobot energy signatures. They had spread out, hidden themselves among the human settlements, integrated with the local population. Clever, Megatron thought, but predictable. Lord Megatron, Shockwave reported, his single optic glowing with cold calculation. I have analyzed the Autobots' energy patterns. They are congregating in one specific location, a human waste disposal site known as a junkyard. A junkyard. Megatron's lip curled. How fitting. The Autobots have always been scavengers. Feeding on scraps. Clinging to the edges of greatness. Shall I mobilize the Constructicons? We could level the site within. No. Shockwave paused. No. Megatron turned, his frame casting a long shadow across the command deck. The Autobots expect a direct assault. They have fortified their position, prepared their defenses. A frontal attack would be costly. He smiled, a thin, cruel expression. No, we will take something they value. Something they cannot replace. He pointed at the map, at a cluster of human dwellings labeled Peach Creek Residential. Their allies, their friends, the organic children who helped them. Starscream's optics widened. You want to take hostages. I want to send a message. But the Prime, he'll never surrender to. He will if we have something he loves. Megatron's smile widened. Send the Predacons. Have them acquire the children. 10:30 a.m., the junkyard bunker. Optimus Prime felt a chill run through his spark. Not a physical cold, a sensing. A warning. The kind of instinct that had kept him alive through 4 million years of war. Ratchet, he said quietly. The children, where are they? Ratchet checked his scanners. The cul-de-sac, Eddie's backyard. Why? Because I think we made a mistake. He turned to face the other Autobots, Bumblebee, RC, Sideswipe, Hot Rod, and the others. We assumed the Decepticons would target us directly. That they would attack our position, our resources, our ship. His optics darkened. But Megatron is smarter than that. He will target what we protect. The kids, Bumblebee beeped, his horns flattening. The kids. Optimus raised his voice. Autobots. To the cul-de-sac. Now. 10:33 a.m., Eddie's backyard. The kids were arguing about snacks. And I'm just saying, if we're going to be allies or whatever, we should at least have a unified snack policy, Eddie was saying, gesturing wildly. There is no unified snack policy, Double D said. That's not a thing. It could be a thing. No, the ground shook. Everyone froze. Another tremor, closer this time. And with it, the sound of engines. Not cars. Not trucks. Something bigger. Kevin said, looking toward the tree line. Guys. From the forest, shapes emerged. Not Autobots. Predacons. Megatron, the other Megatron, the Beast One, led the charge, his dinosaur-like form crashing through the trees like a living battering ram. Behind him came Scorponic, his tail clicking with menace. Pterosaur soared overhead, his wings blotting out the sun. Tarantulas skittered on mechanical legs. Waspinator buzzed in erratic circles. Inferno marched in perfect lockstep, chanting something about the colony. And Quickstrike, half snake, half robot, slithered at the rear, hissing with anticipation. By the Queen, Inferno shouted, we claim these organics for the colony. Inferno, there is no queen, Tarantulas said irritably. There is always a queen. There is literally. Silence. The Predacon Megatron roared, his voice shaking the leaves from the trees. He transformed into his robot mode, landing in the center of the cul-de-sac with a ground-shaking thud. His red optics swept across the children. You, he said, pointing a claw at Eddie. You are the one who aided the Autobots. Eddie's mouth opened, closed, opened again, quote. In my defense, I was going to charge them. Silence. I'm just saying, it was a business arrangement. Nothing personal. The Predacon Megatron smiled, a terrible, tooth-filled expression. Then you will understand this business arrangement. You will come with us. Quietly, peacefully. He flexed his claws. Or not. The choice is yours. Run. Double D shouted. And they did. 10:35 a.m., the chase. The cul-de-sac became a battlefield. Kevin grabbed his bike and pedaled like his life depended on it, because it did. This is insane. This is completely insane. Welcome to our lives. Eddie screamed back. Pterosaur dove from above, his claws outstretched. Ed grabbed a lawn gnome and threw it like a fastball, bonking the Predacon directly in the face. Ow. WHO throws a gnome. Me. I do. I'm Ed. I hate you. That's fair. Jimmy tripped over a garden hose, sprawling across the grass. Scorponic lunged, but Naz was faster. She grabbed Jimmy by the collar and yanked, pulling him out of the way just as the Predacon's claws snapped shut. Run, Jimmy. I'm trying. Try harder. Rolf, meanwhile, had climbed onto his shed and was launching vegetables at the Predacons with a slingshot. Taste the wrath of the old country. This tomato is fermented. Fermented tomatoes do nothing to me. Quickstrike hissed. Then perhaps you will taste the cucumber. That is somehow worse. 10:38 a.m., the arrival. The Autobots arrived like thunder. Optimus Prime transformed mid-air, landing directly in front of the Predacon Megatron, his ion cannon already charged. Megatron. Prime. The Predacon snarled. You're too late. These children are not touched. Optimus fired. The blast caught Megatron in the chest, sending him stumbling backward. The other Autobots fanned out, Bumblebee engaging Pterosaur, RC dueling Scorponic, Grimlock charging directly at Inferno with a roar of pure joy. Grimlock missed you. I don't know you. That doesn't matter. The battle was chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. Lasers and claws and metal and screaming. And in the middle of it all, the Eds found themselves back to back to back. So, Eddie said, watching a Predacon fly over his head, anyone have a plan? I'm working on it. Double D shouted. Work faster. I can't. There's too much noise. Ed picked up a trash can lid and held it like a shield. I'll protect us. I'm very strong. You're also very target-shaped. Thank you. It wasn't, 10:42 a.m., the turning point. The Predacons were losing. Not because they were weaker, they weren't. But because the Autobots fought with something the Predacons didn't have, desperation. These weren't soldiers fighting for territory or resources. These were protectors. And the children they were protecting stood right behind them. Fall back. The Predacon Megatron ordered, clutching his damaged chest. Fall back to the Nemesis. But Lord Megatron, Scorponic started. Now, the Predacons retreated, fleeing into the forest, disappearing into the shadows, leaving their wounded behind. The Autobots stood victorious. But the cost was clear. The children were terrified. 11 a.m., the aftermath. The cul-de-sac was a wreck. Lawns torn up. Fences knocked down. A garden shed that had somehow been flattened, no one was sure how. But everyone was alive. Optimus Prime knelt in the center of the destruction, his optics scanning each of the children in turn. I am sorry, he said quietly. We brought this danger to your door. We never intended. It's fine, Kevin said, surprising everyone, including himself. I mean, it's not fine. It's really not fine. But, he shrugged. You showed up. You saved us. That counts for something. The urban ranger of Peach Creek accepts your apology. Rolf declared, raising his slightly bent garden hoe. But the metal beasts must rebuild the fence. It was a good fence. Rolf's great-uncle built that fence. Grimlock will build fence, Grimlock said. Grimlock is good at hitting things. That is not how you build a fence. Grimlock will learn. Double D, meanwhile, had retreated to the edge of the yard, his hands shaking, his face pale. Eddie found him there. Hey, sockhead, you okay? No, Double D said quietly. No, I'm not. We could have died. All of us. The Decepticons, they're not playing a game. They're not running a scam. They're soldiers. And he laughed, a hollow, trembling sound. We're children. Eddie was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down next to Double D, bumping his shoulder. Yeah, he said, we're children, but we're also the only ones who know about this. The only ones who can help. He looked out at the Autobots, who were already repairing the damage, tending to their wounded, standing guard over the cul-de-sac. We didn't ask for this, Eddie continued. But it happened. And now we have to deal with it. Double D looked at him. Since when are you the wise one? I'm always the wise one. I just hide it under layers of charm and capitalism. That's not charm. That's annoyance. Same thing. 11:30 a.m., the junkyard bunker. That night, the Autobots held a council. Optimus Prime stood at the center of the bunker, surrounded by his soldiers. The Eds sat in the corner, guests, witnesses, participants. The Decepticons will not stop, Optimus said. They will continue to attack, to threaten, to take. And we cannot be everywhere at once. So what do we do? Hot Rod asked. We prepare, we fortify, and we train. He looked at the Eds. The children of this world are not soldiers. But they are brave, they are resourceful, and they know this world better than we ever could. He knelt down, bringing himself to their level. Eddie. I cannot promise your safety. I cannot promise that this war will not touch you. But I can promise that you will not face it alone. Eddie stood up. So what you're saying is, we're in this. We are all in this. Eddie looked at Double D. At Ed. At the other kids, Kevin, Rolf, Naz, Jimmy, even Johnny with Plank held tight against his chest. All right, Eddie said. But I'm still expensing everything. Noted. Everything. Noted. Deep beneath the power plant, the ancient machine stirred again. It had tasted the battle. The fear. The violence. And it was hungrier than before. But it was not yet ready. Not yet strong enough. So it waited. And dreamed. And grew. Chapter 6. Construction Mayhem. The sun beat down on the cul-de-sac like a giant magnifying glass, and for once in their miserable lives, things were going well for the Eds. Eddie had set up a ramshackle snow cone stand in his driveway, a card table, a second-hand ice shaver, and 3 bottles of suspiciously bright syrup he'd found in his brother's closet. By all rational metrics, this should have been a disaster. Instead, it was a gold mine. "Get your icy cool, flavor-blasted snow cones here," Eddie bellowed, his voice echoing across the suburban sprawl. "$1 a pop, 2 for 50 cents, 5 for $1 if you're feeling adventurous." The secret to his unexpected success was, of course, cheating. Wheeljack, the Autobot scientist, had gotten bored. You see, Wheeljack had explained earlier, holding up one of Eddie's syrup bottles like a mad scientist examining a beaker, these flavors are chemically identical. The only difference is food coloring and a suggestion of taste. Your human palate is easily fooled. So they're all the same. Worse, they're all nothing. Water, sugar, and lies. Perfect. Eddie had grinned. Can you make the lies stronger? And so Wheeljack, with nothing better to do and a genuine curiosity about human gustatory perception, had applied a few, non-invasive chemical tweaks, to the syrups. The result was nothing short of alchemical magic. The kids of Peach Creek were flocking to the stand. "This is the best snow cone I've ever had," Jimmy shouted, his face stained blue from ear to ear. "The cherry flavor tastes like actual cherries," Naz said, genuinely impressed. "How did you do that?" "Trade secret," Eddie said, winking. "Also, that'll be another $1 for the flavor enhancement fee." "The what?" "Read the fine print." "There is no fine print." "Then you should have asked questions before purchasing." Even Kevin, after a moment of intense internal conflict visible on his face like a storm cloud passing over the sun, grudgingly tossed $1 onto the counter. "Don't let it go to your head, dorks," he muttered, snatching his snow cone and walking off. Eddie just smirked, stuffing the cash into his pocket. The insult slid off him like water off a jawbreaker wrapper. He was too busy counting the coins that would soon be traded for the ultimate treasure. 3 giant jawbreakers. 1 for each of them. From Kanker's Candy Corner. The ones that lasted all day. Nearby, in the parking lot of the abandoned gas station across the street, 3 very specific vehicles were parked. From within, their occupants observed the scene. So that's how they spend their hard-earned shannocks. Jazz mused from his vehicle form, his radio tuning to a smooth jazz station out of habit. On, colorful rocks of sugar. "They're called jawbreakers," Double D said, who had been left in charge of the stand while Eddie counted his ill-gotten gains. "They are a confectionery marvel, layers upon layers of hardened sugar that dissolve slowly over time, providing a sustained flavor experience that can last for." "I was being rhetorical, little dude." "Oh, apologies. It's a perfectly good business model," Eddie called out, having overheard the conversation as he wandered back to the stand. He patted Jazz's side mirror. "Supply, demand, and a secret ingredient called genius. An interesting application of chemical engineering," Wheeljack commented, his engine giving an approving purr. "The sucrose crystalline structure of the jawbreaker is particularly fascinating. Its dissolution rate is remarkably slow. I wonder if I could accelerate it. Or reverse it. Imagine a jawbreaker that grows in your mouth." "Don't give him ideas," Double D whispered to Eddie. "Are you kidding? That's $1 million idea. We're gonna be rich, sockhead." Deep within the converted hydroelectric plant, the mood was anything but sweet. The monotonous hum of energon production filled the air, a constant, grinding drone that wore on the nerves of even the most disciplined Decepticons. "I've only been able to synthesize a minimum amount of energon," a Viacon drone complained to another, shuffling a glowing purple cube from one conveyor belt to another. "This is so boring." "You said it," his companion replied, checking a gauge that hadn't moved in hours. "I signed up to conquer planets, not to be a glorified factory worker. I didn't go through the academy to press buttons." "You went through the academy." "Well, I watched a training video." "Same thing." On his throne, a construction of scrap metal and conquered trophies, Megatron listened to the discontent. It was a useless emotion, the whining of weak sparks. But it pointed to a logistical problem. Their energy output was still too low. His crimson optics narrowed. A plan, brutal, efficient, and entirely without mercy, formed in his processor. "Soundwave, Megatron's voice cut through the din like a blade. Scan the surrounding wilderness. Identify a region rich with geothermal energy. The Constructicons will have a new project. Soundwave. Scanning, the communications officer intoned, his chest panel opening to release a series of smaller, buzzing drones. They flew out of the plant, dispersing across the landscape. Results. Geothermal anomaly detected. Sector 7. Protected forest zone. Proximity to human settlement, minimal. Protected forest zone, Megatron repeated, tasting the words. How quaint. Environmental protection laws may complicate, Starscream began. Starscream. Yes, Lord Megatron. Did I ask for a legal analysis? Quote. No, Lord Megatron. Then don't give me one. Starscream's mouth snapped shut. His optics, however, continued to calculate. At the Ark, buried beneath the junkyard, an alarm blared. Teletron 1's main console flashed red, bathing the ancient bunker in pulsing emergency light. Ratchet, who had been in the middle of a diagnostic cycle, nearly dropped his scanner. What is it, Ratchet? Optimus Prime asked, turning from his contemplation of the wall map. Energy signature spike, the medic reported, pulling up a topographic map. Massive industrial activity in the protected forest zone to the north, Sector 7. It's not human. The energy readings are Cybertronian. He paused, running the numbers again. Decepticon. Optimus's expression hardened, a subtle shift, but one that every Autobot in the room recognized. Constructicons, he said. It wasn't a question. Almost certainly. The energy signature matches known scavenger-class excavation patterns. Ratchet pulled up a comparison image. They're building something. Fast. How fast? At their current rate, the primary structure will be complete in 3 hours. Optimus turned to face his soldiers. The bunker fell silent. Autobots, he said, and the word carried the weight of 1,000 battles. Roll out. In the serene woods north of Peach Creek, Johnny 2X4 was having a philosophical crisis. Plank, I'm telling you, the beetle winked at me. That's not normal beetle behavior. That's sentient beetle behavior. What if they've been watching us this whole time? What if they're planning something? Plank, as always, offered no opinion. I knew it. You're in on it too. The peace was shattered by a sound like thunder, if thunder were made of crushing metal and screaming earth. Crunch, smash, grind. A massive, yellow bulldozer, Bonecrusher in his vehicle mode, plowed through a stand of ancient trees, reducing them to splinters. Right behind him, Scavenger, in his excavator form, dug massive trenches, tearing up the earth like it was paper. Hey! Johnny yelled, stepping out from behind a tree. What are you guys doing? You can't do that here. This is a protected forest zone. My dad voted for this law. He has a sticker. The bulldozer didn't stop. Instead, it transformed. In a series of terrifying mechanical shifts, metal folding, rotating, rearranging, it became a hulking robot, its single optic glaring down at Johnny with cold indifference. A second later, Scavenger did the same, his clawed hands flexing. The leader of the Constructicons, Scrapper, stepped forward. His blue visor swept across the clearing, cataloging, calculating, dismissing. He reached down and grabbed Johnny by the collar of his shirt, lifting him up to eye level like a misbehaving pet. Listen here, you organic flesh bag. Scrapper's voice was a low, threatening grind, the sound of gears turning without lubrication. We are the Constructicons. This is now a Decepticon operations zone. Your laws mean nothing. Your stickers mean less than nothing. He tilted his head, studying Johnny like a scientist studying a particularly uninteresting bacteria. Now, get lost, you worthless worm. He tossed Johnny. The boy flew through the air, arms flailing, and landed in a soft bush, stunned, scratched, but unharmed. He watched, wide-eyed, as the giant robots ignored him completely and continued their work. You heard Scrapper. Bonecrusher barked, already transforming back into bulldozer mode. Build the refinery. Long haul, move those materials. Mixmaster, prepare the alloy slurry. Mixing, 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 chanted Mixmaster, his drum-like body churning a foul-smelling, metallic paste that bubbled and smoked. The slurry lives. It breathes. It does not breathe, Mixmaster, Hook said irritably, directing a crane arm into position. You don't know that. You haven't studied it. Hightower extended his crane arm, placing prefabricated components with terrifying speed and precision. A sinister structure began to take shape, a lattice of dark metal and glowing purple conduits, humming with barely contained energy. A new energon refinery. Their progress was halted by the roar of engines. 6 vehicles, a familiar yellow Camaro, a sleek red sports car, a rugged military jeep, a green SUV, a blue pickup, and a silver muscle car, skidded to a halt at the edge of the clearing. For a moment, there was silence. Then they transformed. In a synchronized flash of light and motion, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Hound, Ironhide, Brawn, and Sunstreaker stood between the Constructicons and the forest. Well, Brawn cracked his metallic knuckles, a sound like rocks grinding together. If it isn't Megatron's wrecking crew. Destroying a pristine wilderness, Hound said, his voice full of genuine sorrow. He knelt down, touching a fallen tree with unexpected gentleness. This forest was old. Older than your war. Older than us. He looked up, and his optics burned. This is an offense to all living things. Yeah, Ironhide grunted, his arm cannons spinning up with a heavy whir. Time for a demolition of a different kind. Scrapper turned to face them, utterly dismissive. His blue visor swept across the Autobots like they were inconvenient furniture. Autobots. You should mind your own business. We are here to build a new energon plant. By the looks of it, Cliffjumper shot back, his horns twitching with agitation. Not on our watch. Sorry, no can do, Bumblebee buzzed firmly, his door wings flaring. Less than this forest is protected. We're protecting it. It's in the name. Greater than. So be it, Autobot Rust Buckets. Longhaul yelled, dropping a load of raw materials and transforming to robot mode with a crash. You want to get squashed? I'll squash you. The brawl was instant and brutal. Brawn, small but dense, traded powerful blows with Bonecrusher, each hit sending shockwaves through the clearing. Is that all you got? Brawn shouted, taking a punch to the faceplate and barely flinching. I've been hit harder by Bumblebee. Less than I'm right here, Brawn. Greater than. I know. That's what makes it funny. Hound used the terrain, ducking behind trees and launching surprise attacks from impossible angles. He wasn't the strongest Autobot, but he was the most patient. He could wait. He could plan. Sunstreaker, meanwhile, was fighting with a level of vanity that bordered on the absurd. Watch the finish, he shouted, dodging a swing from Scavenger. This paint job took weeks. Your paint job is ugly. Scavenger taunted. You take that back. But for every Autobot that landed a hit, 2 Constructicons kept working. The refinery grew taller, more complete, its humming growing louder. Scrapper assessed the situation with cold calculation. The Autobots were too numerous. Too persistent. This battle would drag on, and every moment it did, the refinery moved closer to completion. But he had another option. Enough, Scrapper said quietly. The other Constructicons paused. Constructicons, Scrapper said, raising his arm, merged to form. Devastator. The 6 Constructicons disengaged from the fight. In a spectacle of terrifying engineering, they broke apart, their components separating, flying through the air, rearranging with deafening clangs and thuds. Limbs became torsos. Torsos became limbs. 6 individual sparks merged into a single, roaring consciousness. In moments, where 6 robots had stood, there was now 1. Devastator. The Combiner stood taller than the trees, his single optic glowing with malevolent intelligence. His voice was a dissonant chorus, all 6 Constructicons speaking at once, their words layering into something wrong. Prepare to be crushed, puny Autobots. The Autobots backpedaled, their fire doing little more than sparking against the Combiner's thick armor. Devastator raised a foot the size of a small car and stomped, missing Bumblebee by inches, sending a shockwave that knocked Cliffjumper off his feet. Scrap! Cliffjumper yelled, scrambling backward. How do we stop that? We don't outmuscle it, Hound said, his tactical processor whirring at maximum capacity. He ducked behind a fallen tree as Devastator's fist smashed through it like paper. Its Gestalt brain is unstable. The individual Constructicons don't always agree, there's conflict in the merge. So what do? We confuse it. It was all the plan they needed. The Autobots transformed back into their vehicle forms and split up, zipping between Devastator's massive legs like gnats, swarming around his feet, attacking from every direction at once. The giant combiner turned, trying to track them, its movements becoming slow and clumsy. The pesky insects. Hold still. Devastator roared, stumbling as it tried to turn too quickly. Left. Go left. One voice commanded. No, right. They're on the right. Another argued. I can't see. Someone moved my optics. Your optics are fine, you just. Quiet. All of you quiet. I'm trying to think. Since when do you think? The giant combiner staggered, its limbs moving in conflicting directions, its balance crumbling. Seeing his chance, Hound transformed back to robot mode and fired a grappling hook into the trees. He wrapped a thick vine around Devastator's ankle. Ironhide did the same on the other side. Now, Hound shouted. With a coordinated pull, they yanked the giant's feet out from under him. Devastator let out a roar of confusion and fury, a sound like a collapsing building, as he teetered, his massive arms flailing. For a moment, he seemed to hang in the air, suspended between gravity and denial. Then he fell. CRRRRRAAAASSSHHHH. The ground shook. Birds fled for miles. Trees splintered under the impact. The mighty combiner lay flat on his back, temporarily stunned, his limbs twitching. Now, Ironhide. Optimus's voice came over the comm. The Autobot leader had been watching from a distance, waiting for this exact moment. Ironhide didn't hesitate. He charged toward the half-built refinery, his cannons blazing. He unleashed a full barrage directly into the core of the structure, where the raw energon was being processed, where the conduits were most vulnerable. The refinery exploded. A ball of purple energy and shrapnel blossomed into the sky, consuming the structure in a cascade of chain reactions. The shockwave knocked Ironhide off his feet, but he was already rolling, already moving, already done. The refinery was gone. Wreckage. Scrap. Nothing. The explosion seemed to jolt the Constructicons back to their senses. Devastator's components screamed, a discordant choir of pain and fury, and the combiner broke apart. The 6 Constructicons collapsed in a heap, battered, smoking, defeated. Scrapper struggled to his feet, his blue visor flickering. This isn't over, he growled. But he was already retreating. Transforming. Running. The other Constructicons followed, Bonecrusher, Scavenger, Mixmaster, Hook, Long Haul. All of them fleeing into the forest, leaving behind the wreckage of their project and the scars of their passage. The Autobots stood in the clearing, watching them go. Well, Ironhide grunted, smoke drifting from his cannons. I've had more graceful plans. But I'll admit, it worked. Took down a combiner by tripping him with a vine, Cliffjumper said, a hint of awe in his voice. That's one for the datalogs. Add it to the unconventional tactics file, Hound said, kneeling down to touch the broken earth. His optics dimmed. So much damage. These trees, they'll never grow back. Not in our lifetime. Not in any of our lifetimes. Bumblebee placed a hand on Hound's shoulder. Less than we saved the rest of the forest. That counts for something. Greater than. Does it? Less than it has too. Greater than. Sunstreaker was already checking his paint job, running his fingers over every panel. No scratches. No scratches. How did I should have scratches. You're insufferable, Braun said. I'm beautiful. There's a difference. Optimus Prime arrived moments later, his truck form rumbling to a stop at the edge of the clearing. He transformed and surveyed the damage, the fallen trees, the scorched earth, the wreckage of the refinery. The Decepticons will try again, he said quietly. This was a test, a probe. They wanted to see how we would respond. And how did we respond? Cliffjumper asked. Optimus looked at his soldiers, battered, tired, but standing. We protected what matters, he said. That is all we can ever do. Back at the Cul-de-Sac, the Eds were oblivious. Eddie was counting his money. Double D was cleaning the snow cone machine. Ed was trying to eat a jawbreaker that was, by all physical laws, too large to fit in his mouth. He was succeeding. No one knew how. Today was a good day, Eddie said, leaning back in his chair. No scams. No disasters. No giant robot attacks. He stretched his arms over his head. I could get used to this. You just jinxed us, Double D said flatly. I don't believe in jinxes. You are a jinx. You are made of jinxes. You are the human embodiment of. The ground shook. A distant explosion echoed from the north. Eddie's smile froze. That wasn't me. That was definitely you. Double D shrieked. I said it wasn't. Ed looked up from his jawbreaker, his face stained purple. Do you think the robots are okay? The three of them looked toward the forest, where smoke was rising, where the birds were still fleeing, where something terrible had just happened. I'm sure they're fine, Eddie said, with absolutely no conviction. Another explosion. We should probably check on them. Probably, Double D agreed. Ed stood up, jawbreaker still in his mouth. I'll bring snacks. Ed, this is not a snack situation. Every situation is a snack situation. And despite themselves, despite the danger, despite the chaos, despite the fact that their lives had become a battleground for an alien war, the Eds grabbed their bikes and started pedaling toward the smoke. Because that's what they did. They showed up. Deep beneath the power plant, the ancient machine stirred again. It had felt the explosion. The destruction of the refinery had sent shockwaves through the earth, waves of energy, of pain, of something the machine recognized. Conflict, war, food. It pulsed in its tomb, its systems flickering. Soon, it thought. Soon I will be strong enough. Soon I will feed. Chapter 7, Pest Control. Life in the Cul-de-Sac had taken a bizarre turn. What had once been a neighborhood defined by scams, jawbreakers, and the occasional thrown shoe was now different. The Eds were enjoying their unusual alliance with the Autobots, though Ed's interpretation of alliance was causing problems. Specifically, the kind of problems that flattened bicycles. Fascinated by the mighty Dinobots, whom he had declared the coolest things ever invented, even more than grilled cheese, the simple-minded Ed had managed to coax Grimlock into his terrifying T-Rex mode. No one was sure how. I just asked nicely. Ed had explained, as if that made any sense. Grimlock likes me. I have a trustworthy face. You have the face of a potato. Eddie had shouted back. A trustworthy potato. And now, Ed was riding on Grimlock's back, whooping with joy as the colossal mechanical dinosaur stomped through the neighborhood. His arms were wrapped around Grimlock's neck, his legs dangling over the metallic scales, his grin stretching from ear to ear. Grimlock King. Grimlock roared, his voice shaking the leaves from the trees. Ed King of Cul-de-Sac. All hail King Ed. Ed bellowed back, one fist raised to the sky. Kevin, polishing his prized bike in his driveway, looked up at exactly the wrong moment. A giant, metal foot descended. Crunch. Kevin's bike, the bike he had saved for, the bike he had polished, the bike he had loved, was flattened into a sad, metallic pancake. The wheels were now ovals. The handlebars were now pretzels. The paint job was now memories. Silence. Kevin stared at the wreckage. His face turned purple, then red, then a shade of furious that scientists had not yet named. My bike, he screamed, his voice cracking with a rage that transcended mortal understanding. He looked up at Grimlock, at the massive, metal, dinosaur-shaped thing that had just destroyed his most prized possession, and his rage curdled instantly into pure, unadulterated terror. Because Grimlock, annoyed by the high-pitched shrieking, had turned his massive head. The T-Rex's jaws opened wide. Smoke curled from between his teeth. His optics, red, burning, ancient, locked onto Kevin like targeting systems. And then he roared. RRRRRRROOOOAAAARRRRR. The sound shook windows. It rattled gutters. It made the Canker's trailer shudder on its cinder blocks. A puff of smoke and simulated fire, Grimlock's idea of a warning shot, billowed from his jaws, washing over Kevin like the breath of a volcano. Kevin turned and ran. He didn't look back. He didn't scream. He just ran, his legs pumping, his arms flailing, his dignity left behind in a crumpled heap next to his flattened bike. Grimlock's head swiveled to follow him. Chase him, Ed shouted, pointing dramatically. The day is young and so are we. Quote. Grimlock chase. The T-Rex took off, its heavy footsteps booming through the neighborhood. Ed clung to its back, whooping like a cowboy at a rodeo. Kevin ran for his life, his house getting farther and farther away. Edward. Double D shrieked from the sidelines, frantically waving his arms. Cease and desist this instant. This is not appropriate ally behavior. Quote. I'm tryin', sockhead. Wheeljack called out, running alongside the chaos. His engine was revving, his fins were flashing, and he looked exhausted. His joy receptors are overriding my command protocols. I didn't even know humans had joy receptors this strong. They don't. Ed is an outlier. Quote. Grimlock, stand down. Wheeljack shouted, waving his arms. Heel. Bad dinosaur. No chasing the locals. Quote. Grimlock's head swiveled toward Wheeljack, his jaws still smoking. Grimlock not dog. Grimlock king. Then act like one. King does what king wants. That's not how monarchy works. Quote. Ed, meanwhile, had spotted a squirrel. Left. There's a squirrel. We must protect the neighborhood from the squirrel menace. Quote. Grimlock hates squirrels. Everyone hates squirrels. They're shifty. Quote. The T-Rex veered left, crashing through a hedge and sending Mrs. Miller's garden gnomes flying in all directions. Kevin, forgotten, collapsed onto someone's lawn, gasping for breath, his heart pounding, his soul broken. Plank, he wheezed to no one in particular, I hate this neighborhood. The scene was pure pandemonium. And in the midst of it all, no one noticed that Johnny 2x4 and his constant companion, Plank, were conspicuously absent. No one, that is, except for Rolf. The boy who speaks to the wooden one has not been seen since the sun was high, Rolf said, squinting at the empty street. This troubles Rolf. The wooden one may be silent, but he is wise. His absence is an omen. Rolf, Plank is a piece of wood, Naz said, not unkindly. The wood speaks to those who listen. Rolf. Quote. Rolf listens. Naz sighed. Fine. Where do you think they went? Rolf pointed toward the forest. The caves. The dark places where the sun does not reach. The boy seeks truth. And truth is often pointy. Quote. I don't know what that means. Neither does Rolf. But it feels correct. Deep in a damp, dark cave system on the outskirts of town, a far more sinister scene was unfolding. The air was thick with moisture and the smell of ozone. Water dripped from stalactites, each drop echoing through the cavern like a timer counting down. Webs, thick, sticky, wrong, coated the walls like wallpaper in a nightmare. And in the center of it all, Johnny 2x4 was tied up. Thick, sticky webbing wrapped around his arms, his legs, his face. He struggled futilely, twisting and squirming, but the webbing held fast. Beside him, bound in miniature webs, lay Plank. Let me go. Johnny yelled, his voice cracking with fear. I have rights. The Constitution says. The Constitution does not apply to bugs, a voice hissed. 3 monstrous Decepticons loomed over him. Tarantulas, a massive spider-like bot with too many legs and too many eyes, clicked his sharp mandibles together, a sound like scissors snapping. His chassis was covered in organic-looking bristles, and his abdomen ended in a spinneret that dripped. Needler, resembling a monstrous wasp, all wings and stingers and needles, hovered nearby, his venom-dripping stinger tapping against the cave wall with a sound like tick, tick, tick. And Scorponic, a hulking scorpion with a tail that could pierce armor and claws that could crush boulders, snapped his powerful pincers, each snap sending vibrations through Johnny's bones. Let us go, you robotic insect freaks. Johnny yelled, his bravado cracking. Would you shut up already? Needler hissed, descending until his stinger pressed against Johnny's neck. The tip was sharp, razor sharp, and cold. You are so annoying. I have wanted to sting something for weeks. Do not give me an excuse. Johnny's mouth snapped shut. I concur, you foul fleshbag, Tarantulas rasped, his multiple red eyes glowing in the darkness. He leaned closer, his mandibles clicking inches from Johnny's face. Any further resistance will see you end up in an early grave, or as the subject of a most enlightening experiment. What kind of experiment? Tarantulas' face split into something that might have been a smile. What happens, he said slowly, when an organic nervous system is connected to a Cybertronian processor? Does the mind merge? Does it break? Does it scream? He tilted his head. I have so many questions. Johnny gulped. His bravado was gone, completely, utterly, gone. Plank, he whispered, turning his head toward his wooden companion. Plank, I'm scared. Plank, as always, offered no opinion. He's judging me, Johnny said. I can feel him judging me. You are delusional, Scorponic said flatly. That's what they said about Galileo. Who? Science guy. Quote, what is the actual plan for this organic test subject? Scorponic asked, turning his large pincers toward Tarantulas. Are we interrogating? experimenting, eating. I need to know how much to sharpen. For the time being, we shall inform Lord Megatron of our acquisition, Tarantula stated. He activated a comms link, his optics flickering as the connection established. A hologram of Megatron flickered to life in the cave, blue-tinted, crackling with interference, but unmistakably him. His crimson optics swept across the scene, cataloging, calculating. Tarantulas. Needler. Scorponic. Report. Tarantulas bowed, a grotesque gesture for a spider bot, all legs and angles. It is an honor, my lord. We bring promising news. He gestured toward Johnny with one spindly arm. We have captured a local human, designating it, Johnny 2X4. We believe it may hold intelligence on the Autobots, new operations. Their allies. Their weaknesses. Megatron's optic brightened with interest. I see. He leaned forward, his holographic form looming. And what progress have you made in interrogating this resource? None yet, my lord, Scorponic answered. But we are prepared to commence more persuasive methods. You are authorized to proceed, Megatron said coldly. Extract whatever information you can. I want to know everything about the Autobots, new allies. Their names. Their homes. Their fears. His optics narrowed. And then, we will use those fears against them. The hologram vanished. Silence filled the cave. No. Please, I beg of you. Johnny cried, genuine tears welling in his eyes. Don't hurt me. I'll do anything. I'll tell you about the Autobots. I'll tell you everything. You will tell us regardless, Tarantulas said, his mandibles clicking. The only question is how much it hurts. Plank, tell them. Plank said nothing. Plank, quote, I am beginning to understand why you have so few friends, Needler observed. I have lots of friends. Quote, name 3. Plank. That is 1. Quote. Johnny. Quote, you are Johnny. Quote. I'm working on it. Quote. Scorponic advanced, his claws raised. Enough talk. Let us begin. Unbeknownst to them, a silent observer perched on a cliff high above the cave entrance. Swoop, in her elegant pteranodon form, had been enjoying the quiet view. The forest was peaceful at this altitude. The wind was warm. The thermals were perfect. She had not intended to spy. She had not intended to interfere. She had simply wanted to fly. And then the faint echoes of a desperate scream reached her audio receptors. Swoop's head snapped toward the sound. Her optics, sharp, predatory, ancient, zoomed in on the cave entrance below. Her sensors pinged. Cybertronian energy signatures. 3. Decepticon class. Organic life signature. 1. Human. Juvenile. Distress level. High. What in the pit, Swoop muttered, banking into a tight turn, is that? She focused her sensors, pinpointing the sound's origin. Another scream, fainter this time, more desperate. The human was scared, terrified. And the Decepticons were enjoying it. A human is in danger, Swoop said, her voice hard. My human. Our human. The ones we protect. She opened a comms channel to the Ark, her wings beating hard as she circled the cave. Autobot base, this is Swoop. I have a visual on a hostage situation. Insecticons, repeat, Insecticons, have captured a local human male. Coordinates transmitting now. The response was immediate. Swoop, this is Optimus. The Prime's voice was calm, but there was iron beneath it. Do not engage alone. Reinforcements are en route. Quote. There's no time. There. A scream echoed from the cave. Louder this time. Younger. They're hurting him, Swoop said. I'm going in. Swoop. But she had already cut the comms. She folded. Her pteranodon form collapsed inward, metal shifting, wings becoming arms, beak becoming faceplate. In seconds, she was in robot mode, sleek, deadly, and furious. She dropped toward the cave entrance. The response from the Ark was immediate and brutal. A ground bridge swirled open at the cave's mouth, green energy spiraling, reality bending, and 3 Autobots stormed through. Blam! Kaboom! Warpath's cannon fire echoed through the cavern, blowing apart the Insecticons' makeshift lab equipment. Glass shattered. Metal twisted. Sparks flew. The 3 Insecticons spun around, their weapons raised, their optics wide. What is the meaning of this? Tarantulas shrieked, his legs scrabbling for purchase on the cave floor. The smoke cleared. It revealed the formidable forms of Ironhide, Warpath, and Powerglide. Ironhide stood at the front, his energon shotgun spinning with a deadly whir. His optics, blue, cold, old, swept across the cave, cataloging threats, calculating angles. Warpath was already transformed, his cannon glowing with residual heat. Pest control. Pest control. We've got bugs. Kablam. Quote. Powerglide hovered above them, his VTOL engines whining, his missiles armed. Looks like someone called an exterminator. You boys been naughty. Sorry to crash the party, Bugs, Ironhide growled, stepping forward. His voice was low, dangerously low, and it echoed through the cave like thunder. But this human isn't on the menu for your twisted experiments. Tarantulas' mandibles clicked in fury. Autobots. Quote. Bugs. Warpath corrected, firing another round. Kaboom. Quote. The cave erupted into chaos. The Insecticons shrieked in fury and opened fire. Needler's venom blast sizzled through the air, green and wrong, splattering against Ironhide's armor. The metal hissed where it landed, corroding, burning. Hew, hew, hew. Needler chanted, his stinger firing with each word. Die, die, die. Quote. Looks like we got ourselves a pest problem, Ironhide grunted, returning fire and forcing the cons to take cover behind a stalagmite. His shotgun boomed, each blast sending chunks of rock flying. Time for some pest control. Kablam! Warpath yelled, firing his main cannon again. The shot hit the ceiling, and a chunk of it collapsed, raining stone and dust onto the Insecticons, crushing a swarm of smaller drones that had been scurrying toward the Autobots' flank. You should have been more careful what you wished for, Hyde. Powerglide quipped, zipping through the air on his VTOL engines. He fired a volley of missiles, each one tracking a different target, forcing the Insecticons to scatter. I didn't wish for anything. Ironhide shouted back, I just wanted to enjoy my afternoon. Quote. Then you shouldn't have become a soldier. Quote. That's not how it works. Quote. Seeing they were outgunned, Scorponic slammed a pincer on a hidden console. Activate the swarm. From hidden tunnels, holes in the walls, cracks in the floor, everywhere, a seething, chittering horde of smaller Insecticon drones poured into the main chamber. There were dozens of them. Hundreds. A wave of claws and fangs and hunger, skittering across the floor, climbing the walls, dropping from the ceiling. Blam. Zowie. Warpath bellowed, his entire body becoming a weapon. He fired and stomped and crushed, turning drones into scrap with every movement. Bugs. Bugs. Everywhere. Kablam. 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 Quote. Ironhide stood his ground, his shotgun roaring, each blast taking out a cluster of drones. But for every one he destroyed, two more took its place. Warpath. We need two. I know what we need. Quote. Then do it. Quote. I'm trying. Quote. While Ironhide and Warpath held off the swarm, Powerglide saw his chance. The Insecticons were distracted. Their attention was on the two Autobots at the cave entrance, on the threat, the danger, the enemy. They had forgotten about the hostage. Powerglide moved. He dove through the air, weaving between stalactites, dodging stray fire. His hands, normally used for missiles and mayhem, reached out, gentle as feathers, and snatched. Johnny came free from the webbing with a RIIIP. Plank followed a moment later. Got the packages. Powerglide shouted, tucking the boy and the board under his arms like footballs. Time to bug out. Quote. Detonate the charges. Ironhide ordered. With pleasure. Warpath's cannon glowed, brighter, hotter, as he charged a final shot. Kablooey. Quote. He fired. The shot hit a critical support column, one of the few things holding the ceiling up. The cave began to collapse. The Autobots dashed back through the still active ground bridge, Powerglide first, then Ironhide, then Warpath, just as the entrance sealed itself under tons of rock. The last thing they saw was Tarantulas, screaming in fury, his legs scrabbling at the falling stones. The last thing they heard was the crunch of drones being crushed. And then, silence. The trio would escape to face Megatron's wrath. Their operation was a complete failure. But that was a problem for later. Back on the surface, Powerglide gently set a trembling Johnny in a stoic plank down. Johnny's legs gave out immediately. He collapsed onto the grass, clutching Plank to his chest, his whole body shaking. Thanks, he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. I thought they were going to. Don't mention it, kid, Ironhide said, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. He knelt down, crouched, really, bringing himself closer to Johnny's level. Just stay out of dark caves from now on. And maybe, don't go anywhere alone. Not until this is over. Johnny nodded, still trembling. Yeah, what he said. Warpath boomed. Caves are bad. Bugs are bad. Stay where there are no bugs. Quote. Warpath, inside voice, Powerglide hissed. This is my inside voice. Quote. That's terrifying. Quote. Ironhide transformed, his metal shifting, folding, rearranging, until a rugged pickup truck sat where the Autobot had been. His passenger door swung open. Now, Ironhide said, his voice coming from the truck's speakers, let's get you home before you're missed. Johnny climbed inside, still clutching Plank. The seat was warm, the engine was rumbling, and for the first time in hours, he felt safe. Plank, he whispered, looking down at his wooden friend as the truck pulled away. Those car robots, they're the good guys. Plank, as always, seemed to agree. Later that evening, the cul-de-sac gathered. Johnny told his story, the cave, the webs, the bugs. His voice shook, and his hands trembled, but he told it all. Kevin, who had spent the afternoon mourning his flattened bike, listened in silence. So, Kevin said finally, the giant robot bugs kidnapped you. Yes. And the other giant robots saved you. Quote. Yes. Kevin looked at his flattened bike. Then at the forest. Then back at his bike. Quote. Fine, he said. Maybe they're not all bad. King Ed is not bad. Ed shouted from atop Grimlock, who had somehow returned to the cul-de-sac without anyone noticing. King Ed is benevolent. Quote. Grimlock is also benevolent. Grimlock added. When Grimlock wants to be. Quote. Which is sometimes. Quote. Which is enough. Quote. Kevin looked at the T-Rex. At the boy on its back. At the flattened remains of his bicycle. He sighed. I'm moving, he said. I'm moving to a place with no robots. No aliens. No bugs. Where? Naz asked. Quote. I don't know. But it exists. It has to exist. Rolf placed a hand on Kevin's shoulder. The urban ranger understands your pain, Rolf said solemnly. But the metal beasts are here to stay. We must adapt. We must endure. We must. Ride the dinosaur, Ed shouted. Rolf will not ride the dinosaur. Quote. Coward. Quote. Rolf is strategic. Quote. Deep beneath the power plant, the ancient machine stirred once more. It had tasted the battle. The fear. The pain. The Insecticons. Failure had sent ripples through the earth. Waves of energy, of desperation, of something the machine recognized. Hunger. It pulsed in its tomb, its systems flickering. Soon, it thought. Soon I will be strong enough. Soon I will feed. But not yet. Not yet. Chapter 8. Double D's Battle Suit. The bunker beneath the junkyard had become many things over the past few weeks. A sanctuary. A fortress. A home. But tonight, in the quiet hours after midnight, it had become something else entirely. A workshop. 1 a.m., the Autobot base, lower level. The lower level of the bunker was a maze of ancient corridors and forgotten chambers, places even the Autobots hadn't fully explored. But one room, once used for storage, had been transformed. Wheeljack's tools were scattered across every surface. Energy cables snaked across the floor like metal vines. Holographic blueprints flickered in the air, casting blue light across the walls. And in the center of it all, surrounded by scrap metal and half-finished projects, stood Double D. He was exhausted. His ski cap was askew. His eyes had dark circles beneath them. His hands were covered in grease and small cuts from handling sharp metal. But he was smiling. You've been at this for 14 hours, Wheeljack said, leaning against a workbench. His fins flickered with concern. When was the last time you slept? Sleep is for the weak, Double D muttered, not looking up from the control panel he was wiring. Sleep is for the organic. You're not a robot, kid. You need rest. I'll rest when, he paused, fumbling with a wire, when this is finished. Wheeljack sighed. He had seen this before, the obsessive focus, the refusal to stop, the need to create. It was familiar. Too familiar. You remind me of someone, Wheeljack said quietly. Who? Myself. About 4 million years ago. Double D finally looked up. Did you ever sleep? No. And I paid for it. Wheeljack walked over, placing a hand on the half-built machine. But I also built some incredible things. So, I can't say I regret it. Double D looked back at his work. The machine was beautiful. The blueprint, DA-93 robot base machine. The design had started as a dream, a desperate dream, born from the fear of being helpless. Every battle, every attack, every moment of terror had pushed Double D toward the same conclusion. He needed to protect himself. He needed to protect his friends. And he couldn't do that as a fragile, squishy human. The blueprints were based on a design Wheeljack had shown him, an ancient Cybertronian schematic for a robot-based machine, a frame that could be worn or piloted by smaller beings. It was originally designed for minicons, but the principles were the same. DA-93, Wheeljack had explained, pulling up the hologram. Obsolete by modern standards. Clunky. Power inefficient. But sturdy. He had tapped the display. And modular. You can build it with scrap. Real scrap. The kind you find in junkyards. Double D had looked at the blueprint. And he had seen possibility. The machine. First look. The suit stood in the center of the workshop, supported by scaffolding and energy cables. It was tall, nearly 8 feet, dwarfing Double D's small frame. But it was also sleek, designed for agility rather than brute force. The outer plating was a patchwork of metals, some salvaged from the junkyard, some donated by Wheeljack, some borrowed from the bunker's ancient stores. The color scheme was unmistakable. Orange, yellow, blue. Double D's colors. You painted it, Wheeljack said, amused. Of course I painted it. Aesthetic matters. It's a battle suit. It's supposed to be functional. Function and form are not mutually exclusive. The suit's design was humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, a head. But the proportions were wrong for a transformer. The limbs were longer, the torso narrower, the hands designed for delicate work rather than combat. This isn't a weapon, Wheeljack had observed earlier. It's a tool. It can be both, Double D had replied. The best tools are weapons. The suit's most distinctive feature was its backpack, a large, cylindrical module that housed the power core, the life support systems, and, most importantly, the jetpack. I can't fly, Double D had explained. But this suit can. You've never flown before. How hard can it be? Wheeljack had laughed. Then he had seen Double D's face, the seriousness, and stopped laughing. You're actually going to do this. I'm already doing this. 2 a.m., the control test. Okay, Double D said, climbing into the suit's open chest cavity. Initiating first interface. The suit's interior was cramped, designed for a minicon, not a human, but Double D had modified the controls. Levers. Buttons. A neural interface headset that Wheeljack had definitely not approved. Are you sure about the headset? Wheeljack asked, hovering nearby. Direct neural interfaces are dangerous. One wrong signal and my brain gets fried. Yes, I'm aware. Aware isn't the same as prepared. Double D pulled the headset down over his ski cap. Then it's a good thing I'm both. The suit hummed to life. Lights flickered across the interior, green, blue, purple, as the power core engaged. The neural interface clicked into place, and Double D felt a strange pressure behind his eyes. And then, connection. The suit became an extension of his body. He could feel the arms, the legs, the weight of the metal surrounding him. It was like wearing a second skin, a giant, powerful second skin. Whoa, Double D whispered. Whoa good or whoa bad? Wheeljack asked. Whoa, incredible. He took a step. The suit moved. Another step. Smoother this time. The hydraulics hissed, the servos whirred, and Double D felt a grin spreading across his face. I'm walking, he said. I'm walking in a giant robot suit. You're shuffling, Wheeljack corrected. But it's a good start. I'm walking. 3 a.m., the weapons test. The suit wasn't designed for combat. But that didn't mean it was defenseless. Double D had equipped the arms with retractable blades, salvaged from the junkyard, sharpened to a razor's edge. The hands could deliver electrical shocks, enough to stun a Decepticon soldier. And the chest plate could open to reveal a grappling hook. A grappling hook, Wheeljack had asked, bewildered. For mobility. You're in a battle suit. Mobility is essential. But the suit's most impressive feature was the jetpack. Double D stood in the center of the workshop, his feet braced, his arms at his sides. The backpack hummed, building power. Initiating flight test, he said. Be careful, Wheeljack warned. I'm always careful. You literally exploded a toaster last week. Quote. That was a scientific inquiry. The jetpack ignited. Flames erupted from the backpack, blue and white and hot, and Double D shot upward like a rocket. Ah. Quote. Pull up, quote. I'm trying, quote. That's not pulling up, that's spinning, quote. I'm spinning upward, quote. Double D crashed into the ceiling, or, more accurately, through the ceiling. His suit punched through the ancient stone, sending debris raining down on Wheeljack's head. Kid, quote. 3:05 a.m., the upper level. Double D landed in the middle of the Autobots' main common area. Crash. Optimus Prime looked up from his datapad. Ratchet dropped his medical scanner. Bumblebee beaked in alarm, and Double D, covered in dust, grease, and embarrassment, stood up in his battlesuit and waved. Quote. Hello, he said. Silence. Then, what in the pit is that? Ratchet shouted. It's a battlesuit. It's a death trap. Quote. It's my death trap. I built it myself. Optimus Prime walked over, his optics scanning the suit with calm curiosity. He circled it once, twice, 3 times, taking in the patchwork plating, the exposed wiring, the enthusiasm radiating from its pilot. You built this, Optimus said. It wasn't a question. Yes. From scrap. Mostly. I may have repurposed some of TELETRAAN1's backup power cells. You what? Ratchet shrieked. They were backup. Quote. There are no backups. There is only sufficiency. Quote. Optimus raised a hand, and Ratchet fell silent. The Prime knelt down, bringing himself closer to Double D's level. His blue optics studied the suit, the craftsmanship, the design, the care that had gone into every weld. Why? Optimus asked quietly. Double D hesitated. Because, he said finally, I'm tired of being helpless. The words hung in the air. You've seen the battles, Double D continued. The Decepticons, the Predacons, the danger. Every time something happens, I have to run. I have to hide. I have to let you protect me. He looked down at his metal hands, the suit's hands, his hands. I don't want to be protected anymore. I want to help. Optimus was silent for a long moment. Then he placed a hand on the suit's shoulder, gentle, paternal. You already help, he said. More than you know. But, Optimus interrupted, I understand the need to do more. I felt the same way, once. When I was young. When I was, helpless. Double D looked up at him. Then you understand, Double D said. I do. Will you help me? Optimus's optics softened. Show me what it can do. 4 a.m., the training ground. The Autobots had cleared a section of the bunker for training, a large, empty chamber with reinforced walls and a high ceiling. It was here that Double D tested his suit. And failed. Again. Ironhide shouted from the sidelines. You're moving like a sloth. Quote. I'm moving like a human in a giant robot suit. That's not an excuse. Quote. The suit stumbled, caught itself, and lunged, firing its grappling hook at a target on the far wall. The hook missed, embedding itself in the ceiling instead, and Double D was yanked upward. H. He crashed into the ceiling again. I'm starting to see a pattern here, Wheeljack observed. Help him. Quote. He needs to learn. Quote. He needs to survive. Quote. 5 a.m., the breakthrough. Double D sat in the middle of the training chamber, his suit's legs splayed out, his chest heaving. He was exhausted. But he was also learning. The problem, he said, more to himself than anyone else, is that I'm treating the suit like a vehicle. But it's not a vehicle. It's an extension. Go on, Optimus said, sitting across from him. I'm trying to control it. To command it. But that's not how it works. He tapped the neural interface headset. It's supposed to be instinctive. I need to stop thinking and start feeling. And how do you do that? Double D closed his eyes. He let his arms go limp. Let his breathing slow. Let his mind empty. And then, connection. The suit moved. Not because he told it to. Because he wanted it to. He stoed up. Smooth. Graceful. Right. He raised an arm. The suit's arm rose with him. He took a step. The suit stepped with him. Whoa, he whispered. Hoa, Ed's voice echoed from the doorway. Double D turned. Ed and Eddie stood at the entrance to the training chamber, still in their pajamas, their hair disheveled, their eyes wide. Double D, Eddie said slowly, is that a giant robot suit? Quote. Yes. Did you build a giant robot suit? Quote. Yes. Without telling us. Quote. I wanted it to be a surprise. Ed was already running toward the suit, his arms outstretched. I want one. I want one. I want to be a giant robot too. Quote. Ed, wait. Ed slammed into the suit's leg, wrapping his arms around it. It's so shiny. Quote. It's not shiny, it's beautiful. Quote. Eddie walked over, circling the suit with a critical eye. Okay. Impressive. But can it fight? It can grapple. Can it fight? Quote. It can stun. Can it fight? Quote. Double D sighed. It can defend. Eddie crossed his arms. Not good enough. I'm working on it. Work faster. The Decepticons aren't going to wait for you to finish your arts and crafts project. This isn't arts and crafts. This is engineering. Quote. Same thing. Quote. 6 a.m., the workshop. Double D stood in front of his workbench, two additional suits taking shape beside his own. Ed's suit was larger, bulkier, with thicker armor and larger fists. It was designed for strength, not speed. The plating was a patchwork of green and orange, and the head had been modified to accommodate Ed's enthusiasm. I call it the bulk, Double D said, pointing at the larger suit. I love it, Ed said, already trying to climb inside. I will name it Steve. Quote. You can't name it Steve. Steve is a noble name. Quote. Eddie's suit was sleeker, smaller, faster, designed for agility. The plating was blue and yellow, and the hands had been modified with hidden compartments at Eddie's insistence. For storage, Eddie had claimed. For scams, Double D had countered. Same thing. Quote. And what about you? Wheeljack asked, looking at Double D's suit. Double D turned to face his own creation. His suit was the smallest of the three, designed for precision rather than power. The orange and yellow plating gleamed under the workshop lights, and the jetpack hummed with barely contained energy. It doesn't have a name yet, Double D admitted. Every machine needs a name, Wheeljack said. It's bad luck otherwise. Double D thought for a moment. Quote. The architect, he said finally. Because it's not a weapon. It's a tool. And tools build things. That's so nerdy. Eddie shouted. I'm a nerd. Quote. We know. Quote. 7 a.m., the Cul-de-Sac. The sun was rising over Peach Creek. The Eds stood in the center of the Cul-de-Sac, their battle suits gleaming in the morning light. Ed's suit, Steve, towered over the others, its massive fists raised in triumph. I am invincible. Ed shouted, his voice echoing from the suit's external speakers. I am might. I am, asterisk. You're blocking the sun, Kevin shouted from his driveway. I am blocking the sun. Quote. Move. Quote. No. Quote. Eddie's suit, which he had immediately dubbed the Prophet, was already circling the cul-de-sac, testing its speed. This thing is fast, he said, his voice crackling over the comms. I could scam so many people in this. You're not supposed to scam people in it. Double D shouted. Then why did you put in hidden compartments? For storage. Quote. Same thing. Quote. And Double D, in his suit, the architect, stood in the middle of it all, watching his friends bicker. He was tired. He was sore. He had grease in places grease should never be. But he was also safe. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could fight back. Double D. Ed shouted. Let's wrestle. Quote. Absolutely not. Quote. Please. Quote. Your suit is 3 times my size. You would crush me. Quote. I would be gentle. Quote. Your definition of gentle involves fences. Quote. Deep beneath the power plant, the ancient machine stirred. It had felt the new energy signatures. 3 of them. Small. Crude. But growing. The humans were arming themselves. Interesting, the machine thought. Let them try. It would only make them taste better. Chapter 9. The Suits, First Fight. 3 days had passed since the Eds completed their battle suits. 3 days of training. 3 days of testing. 3 days of Eddie trying to figure out how to monetize giant robot heroism. We could charge for appearances, he had suggested. Birthday parties. Bar mitzvahs. Corporate events. Eddie, we're children. Children with giant robots, sockhead. That's called a brand. But today, there would be no training. Today, the Decepticons came to the Cul-de-Sac. 7 a.m., Eddie's backyard. The morning had started normally. Too normally. Eddie was eating cereal directly from the box. Ed was trying to befriend a squirrel, it was not going well. Double D was performing routine maintenance on the 3 suits, which were parked in Eddie's backyard like metal statues. The architect's power coupling is showing minor fluctuations, Double D muttered, tapping a gauge. I may need to recalibrate the Double D. Ed shouted. What? Quote. The squirrel is spying on us. Quote. Ed, the squirrel is eating a nut. Quote. That's what they want you to think. Quote. Eddie crunched his cereal. Can we focus? We have a big day today. We do. Yeah, I'm gonna test the Prophet's speed against Kevin's new bike. Loser buys the winner a jawbreaker. Kevin doesn't even know about this bet. He will when I tell him. Double D sighed. Eddie, we can't use the suits for. The ground shook. Not a tremor. Not an earthquake. An impact. Something had landed. Something heavy. The 3 Eds froze. Quote. That wasn't me, Ed said. I didn't ask, Eddie replied. Another impact. Closer this time. Followed by the sound of metal. Heavy footsteps, marching. Double D's blood ran cold. Get in the suits, he said. What? Quote. Get in the suits now. Quote. 7:03 a.m., the Cul-de-Sac. The Decepticons had arrived. Not the full army, not Megatron, not the Constructicons, not the heavy hitters. This was a scout force. A test. But that didn't make them any less terrifying. Blackout led the charge, his massive helicopter form descending from the sky, rotors screaming, kicking up debris and terror in equal measure. He transformed mid-air, landing in the center of the cul-de-sac with a ground-shaking thud. Behind him came Scorponic, the Predacon scorpion, fresh from his humiliation in the caves, his tail twitching with barely contained fury. His claws snapped, each snap sending vibrations through the pavement. And flanking them both were a dozen Decepticon ground soldiers, warrior class, armed with blasters and hungry for a fight. Autobots. Blackout roared, his optics sweeping across the empty street. Show yourselves. Quote. Silence. I said. They're not here, Scorponic interrupted, his tail clicking. I don't detect any Cybertronian signatures. Just, organics. Quote. Blackout's optics narrowed. Where are they? Quote. How should I know? Quote. You're the scout. Quote. I'm a scorpion. I burrow. I don't scout. Quote. The ground soldiers exchanged confused glances. So, do we attack? One asked. There's nothing to attack, another replied. We could attack the houses. Quote. Why would we attack the houses? Quote. Because they're there. Quote. Blackout snarled. Enough. We came for the Autobots. If they're not here, we. Hey. Quote. A voice. Young. Annoying. Blackout turned. 3 suits stood at the end of the cul-de-sac. One was massive, green and orange, with fists the size of trash cans. One was sleek, blue and yellow, with hidden compartments and a grille that somehow looked smug. And one was smaller, orange and yellow, with a jetpack and a pilot who was clearly terrified but trying not to show it. Quote. What are those? Scorponic asked. They look like human constructs, Blackout said. Primitive, crude, laughable. Quote. Hey, the blue and yellow suit shouted. These suits are not laughable. They're state-of-the-art. Quote. Built from junkyard scraps, the orange and yellow suit added. Quote. You're not helping, the blue and yellow one muttered. I'm being honest. Quote. The massive green and orange suit stepped forward. Its voice, when it came, was booming. I am Steve. Quote. Steve. Quote. Steve the Mighty. And you are trespassing in our cul-de-sac. Quote. Blackout stared at the suit. Then at Scorponic. Then back at the suit. Quote. Kill them, he said. 7:06 a.m., the battle begins. The Decepticon ground soldiers charged. 12 of them, armed with blasters, armored with Cybertronian alloys, trained for war, rushed toward the 3 homemade suits like a metal wave. Ed. Left flank. Double D shouted, his architect suit's jetpack igniting. Left flank. Ed repeated, his Steve suit charging. I don't know what that means. Quote. It means go left. Quote. Oh. Quote. Ed turned left. Directly into 3 ground soldiers. Crash. The soldiers went flying, tumbling across the pavement, their armor cracked, their optics spinning. Ed stood in the middle of the wreckage, his massive fists raised. I am left, he shouted. And left is strong. Quote. That's not, you know what, fine. Double D yelled. Eddie's prophet suit was already moving, dodging blaster fire, weaving between soldiers, his hidden compartments opening to release smoke bombs. Smoke. Eddie shouted. I put smoke bombs in the compartments. Quote. Why? Quote. For escaping. Quote. We're fighting. Quote. Same thing. Quote. The smoke filled the cul-de-sac, obscuring vision, confusing sensors. The ground soldiers stumbled, firing blindly, hitting each other more than the Eds. I can't see. One shouted. I can't breathe. Quote. You don't have lungs. Quote. Then why do I feel suffocated? Quote. 7:09 a.m., Blackout joins the fight. Blackout had watched enough. Pathetic, he snarled, transforming fully into robot mode. His arm cannons glowed, building power, charging. You insects think you can challenge the Decepticon cause. Quote. He fired. The blast, massive, devastating, streaked toward the prophet suit. Eddie. Double D screamed. But Eddie was already moving, his suit leaping to the side, the blast missing by inches, exploding against a parked car instead. Boom. The car flipped, landed on its roof, wheels spinning. That was my mom's car. Kevin's voice echoed from somewhere inside his house. Sorry. Eddie shouted back. You will be. Quote. Blackout fired again, and again, and again. Each blast missed, but barely. The prophet suit was fast, but it couldn't dodge forever. Double D. Eddie shouted, his voice crackling over the comms. A little help. Quote. Double D's architect suit was already in the air, jetpack roaring, grappling hook ready. He flew toward Blackout, fast, low, unpredictable. Hey, he shouted. Over here. Quote. Blackout turned. Double D fired the grappling hook. It hit Blackout's shoulder, embedding itself in the joint, and Double D yanked. The Decepticon stumbled. His next shot went wide, exploding into Mrs. Miller's prize-winning rose bushes. My roses. Mrs. Miller's voice shrieked from her window. Sorry. Double D shouted. You will be. Quote. 7:12 a.m., Scorponic's revenge. Scorponic had been watching, waiting, planning. The scorpion's tail twitched, and then struck. Not at the suits, at the ground. His tail pierced the asphalt, injecting something. A green, glowing liquid that spread across the cul-de-sac like poison. What is that? Eddie shouted. I don't know. Double D replied. But I suggest we avoid it. Quote. No kidding. Quote. The liquid hissed where it touched, melting through pavement, eating through metal. A ground soldier stepped in it by accident and screamed as his leg dissolved. My leg. My leg. Quote. You have two. Quote. I was attached to that one. Quote. Ed's Steve suit charged through the chaos, ignoring the liquid, ignoring the soldiers, ignoring everything except Scorponic. Scorpion. Ed roared. I have stepped on scorpions before. Quote. I am not a scorpion. I am a predacon. Quote. Same thing. Quote. Ed leapt. Steve's massive form soared through the air, arms outstretched, fists clenched, and came down on Scorponic like a meteor. Crash. The Predacon went down, his legs scrabbling, his tail flailing, his optics spinning. Get off. Get off. Quote. No. Quote. I will crush you. Quote. I am already crushing you. Quote. Ed's fists pounded into Scorponic's chassis, each hit sending sparks flying, each hit denting the armor. This. Pound. Is. Pound. For. Pound. Johnny. Pound. I don't even know Johnny. Scorponic screamed. That's the problem. Quote. 7:15 a.m., Blackout's retreat. Blackout had seen enough. The scout force was failing. 3 humans in homemade suits were holding them off. Holding them off. His pride burned, but his survival instinct burned hotter. Scorponic. Blackout shouted. We're leaving. Quote. I'm a little busy. Quote. Now. Quote. Blackout transformed, his massive helicopter form rising into the sky, rotors screaming. He fired a final volley, not at the suits, but at the houses, creating chaos, creating distraction. Decepticons. Retreat. Quote. The ground soldiers didn't need to be told twice. They ran, limping, dragging, fleeing, scrambling after their commander. Scorponic shoved Ed off him, his tail lashing out, catching Steve's arm, tearing through the plating, and scrambled after the others. Come back here, Ed shouted, raising his damaged fist. I wasn't finished. Quote. Ed. Double D shouted. Let them go. Quote. But, the suit is compromised. Your arm is. Ed looked down at his arm. The plating was torn, the wiring was exposed, and something was sparking. Quote. Oh, he said. That's not good. Quote. The arm fell off. Clang. Quote. Now it's really not good. Quote. 7:20 a.m., the aftermath. The cul-de-sac was a wreck. Cratered pavement. Smoldering cars. Mrs. Miller's rose bushes, gone, reduced to ash and memory. But the Decepticons were gone. And the Eds were still standing. Eddie climbed out of the prophet suit, his legs shaking, his face pale. We did that. We survived that, Double D corrected, emerging from the architect. There's a difference. We won, Ed shouted, still inside Steve's one-armed cockpit. We won and I didn't even pee this time. Quote. Ed, that's not. I'm proud of myself. Quote. The cul-de-sac kids emerged from their houses, one by one, tentative, terrified. Kevin stared at his mom's flipped car. Then at the Eds. Then back at the car. Quote. You're fixing that, he said. We'll try. You're fixing that. Quote. Rolf walked over to Ed's suit, poking the damaged arm with a garden hoe. The metal beast has fought well, Rolf declared. Rolf will allow it to rest in the sacred shed. The shed is not sacred. Quote. It is now. Quote. Jimmy was crying. Naz was comforting him. Johnny was hugging Plank and whispering something about metal guardians and destiny. And in the middle of it all, Double D stood in front of his damaged suit, surveying the damage, calculating the repairs. We need to be better, he said quietly. Eddie looked at him. What? The suits. They worked, barely. But against a real Decepticon force. Against Megatron. Against Devastator. He shook his head. We'd be scrap. So what do we do? Double D looked at his friends, at Ed, still grinning despite his missing arm, at Eddie, already scheming despite his trembling. We improve, Double D said. We make the suit stronger. Faster. Deadlier. Deadlier. Ed shouted. I like deadlier. Quote. You're not supposed to like it. Too late. Quote. Deep beneath the power plant, the ancient machine watched. It had seen the battle. It had tasted the energy. And it had learned. The humans were stronger than it had expected. More resourceful. More dangerous. But they were still organic. Still fragile. Still food. The machine pulsed in its tomb, its systems flickering, its hunger growing. Soon, it thought. Soon. Chapter 10. Autobots meet Maximals. Spring break had finally arrived in Peach Creek. For most kids, that meant sleeping in, eating junk food, and avoiding anything that resembled responsibility. For the Eds, it meant something else entirely. Escape. 3 weeks, Eddie said, leaning back in Jazz's passenger seat. 3 weeks without Kevin, without Rolf, without anyone telling us what to do. 3 weeks without consequences, Double D added nervously. Same thing. Ed, riding in Bulkhead's passenger seat, which was really just the back of a green SUV, but Ed had claimed it as the throne, was already eating his third bag of chips. Can we get ice cream? I want ice cream. The kind with the chunks. We're not even there yet, Ed. Preemptive ice cream. Jazz's engine purred as he cruised down the highway, his radio tuned to something smooth and instrumental. So, boys, where exactly are we gonna go? You said, somewhere outside the cul-de-sac, but that's vague. Eddie grinned. Mississippi. Mississippi, Jazz repeated. The Mississippi River, Eddie clarified. I saw it in a documentary once. Looked peaceful. Lots of trees. No Decepticons. Famous last words, Double D muttered. Optimism, sockhead. The convoy. The Autobot convoy stretched along the highway, a line of vehicles that would have turned heads if anyone had been paying attention. Jazz led the way, sleek in black, Eddie riding shotgun. Metaphorically, Jazz didn't actually have a shotgun. Bulkhead rumbled behind him, green and massive, Ed's face pressed against the window like a child at a zoo. Wheeljack followed, his sleek form gliding over the asphalt, Double D in the passenger seat taking notes on everything. And behind them came the others, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Chromedome, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, and Hound, a rolling army of disguised warriors. Look at all this space, Bumblebee beeped, his horns flashing with excitement. Less than no buildings, no traffic, just trees. Greater than. Enjoy it while it lasts, Cliffjumper replied. Megatron's probably already planning something. Can you not ruin the vibe for 5 minutes? I'm being realistic. Hound, bringing up the rear, was the quietest of the group. His sensors swept the landscape, the trees, the rivers, the life, and he felt something he rarely felt on Cybertron. Peace. Beautiful country, he murmured. Shame we're here to fight. Maybe we're not, Sunstreaker said, checking his reflection in a passing window. Maybe this is just a vacation. No fighting, no Decepticons, just driving. Since when are you optimistic? Since I realized the Mississippi sun makes my paint job gleam. The Mississippi River. They found a spot near the river, a clearing surrounded by ancient oaks, with a view of the water that stretched for miles. A small motel sat nearby, the kind of place that hadn't been updated since the 1970s, with a flickering neon sign that read, "Vacancy," in pink letters. Perfect, Eddie said, climbing out of Jazz. We'll stay here, cheap, out of the way. No one will find us. You're tempting fate, Double D warned. Fate can find me when I'm done relaxing. Ed was already running toward the river, his shoes kicking up mud. Water. Big water. I'm going to touch it. Quote. Ed, don't. Ed touched the water. Nothing happened. Quote. I'm going to drink it. Quote. Ed, no. Quote. While Ed attempted to befriend a catfish, Double D wandered the edge of the clearing, his camera clicking. The Mississippi was beautiful, in a wild, untamed way. The trees were old, their roots twisting into the river like ancient fingers. The water was brown and slow, carrying secrets downstream. And the air smelled like earth and history and something else. Something familiar. Double D stopped. A tree. Not special, just a tree, old and gnarled, with bark that peeled in long strips. But carved into the bark was a symbol. Not human, not Decepticon, not Autobot. It looked like a cat, sleek, predatory, with optics that seemed to glow even in the daylight. Strange, Double D muttered. Hey, Wheeljack, come look at this. Wheeljack ambled over, his fins flickering with curiosity. What did you find, kid? Double D pointed at the symbol. Wheeljack's optics widened. That's. He leaned closer, scanning the carving with his built-in sensors. That's Cybertronian, but I've never seen this insignia before. It's not Autobot, not Decepticon, not even Quintessent. What is it, then? Wheeljack shook his head. I don't know, but it's old. Older than me. Older than Optimus, maybe. He looked around at the trees, the river, the silence. Something's been here. Something we don't know about. The ground shook. Not an earthquake, footsteps. Heavy. Rhythmic. Approaching. What was that? Eddie shouted from the motel parking lot. I don't know. Double D shouted back. Ed, get away from the water. Quote. But the fish like me. Quote. The bushes exploded. The ambush. A rhino burst from the tree line, massive, gray, mechanical, its horn glowing with blue energy. It charged directly at Wheeljack, slamming into the Autobot scientist and pinning him to the ground. Wheeljack, Double D screamed, and then the elephant came. She was enormous, towering over the trees, her trunk wrapped around a massive oak, uprooting it like a weed. Her eyes, red, burning, locked onto Double D. Run! Double D shouted. He ran. The elephant's trunk snaked out, faster than anything that size had a right to be, and wrapped around Double D's waist. No, no, put me down. Quote. The trunk tightened, lifting him off the ground, bringing him face to face with the elephant's massive, mechanical visage. You are small, the elephant said. Her voice was southern, thick, honeyed, dangerous. And you are squishy. I could crush you like a grape. Quote. Please don't. Quote. Then cooperate. Quote. The rest of the convoy was under attack. A cheetah, golden, sleek, blindingly fast, darted between the Autobots, tripping Bumblebee, clawing at Cliffjumper, laughing as he moved. Too slow. Too slow. You're all too slow. Quote. Get back here. Cliffjumper shouted, firing wildly. Catch me first. Quote. A tiger, orange, black-striped, terrifying, circled Bulkhead, his tail lashing, his fangs bared. You're blocking the path, the tiger growled. Move, or I'll make you move. Quote. I'm not blocking anything. You're blocking me. Quote. Insolent. Quote. And then, the ape. He emerged from the trees slowly, deliberately, his massive form towering over the others. His fur was dark, almost black, and his eyes were golden, intelligent, ancient. He looked at the chaos. At the Autobots pinned and struggling. At the Eds screaming for help. And he roared. Enough. Quote. The battle froze. The cheetah stopped mid-stride. The tiger stopped mid-growl. The rhino stopped mid-charge. The elephant's trunk loosened, just slightly, around Double D. The ape stepped forward, his golden eyes scanning the Autobots one by one. Who are you? He demanded. Look, guys. Ed shouted, pointing at the ape. A talking ape. That's so cool. Quote. The Maximals stared at him. Quote. Did that organic just call me a talking ape? The ape asked. He's special, Eddie said, his hands raised. We're all special. But he's special Ed. Ed shouted proudly. Quote. I'm not even going to ask. Quote. The standoff. Optimus Prime transformed, his massive form towering over the clearing, his ion cannon raised, his faceplate set. Release them, he said. His voice was calm, but there was iron beneath it. Now. Quote. The ape's golden eyes met Optimus's blue ones. Or what? The ape asked. Or I will make you. Quote. The elephant's trunk tightened around Double D. He's feisty, Optimus. I like him. Quote. Quiet, Eraser. Quote. I'm just saying. I said quiet. Quote. The ape stepped closer to Optimus, close enough to touch, close enough to fight. You wear the symbol of the Autobots, the ape said. But the Autobots have been gone for centuries. Dead. Extinct. So I'll ask you again. Quote. His voice dropped, dangerous, low. Who are you? Quote. Optimus didn't flinch. My name is Optimus Prime, he said. Leader of the Autobots. And I have never met you before in my life. Quote. The ape's eyes widened. Quote. Prime. Quote. You know the name. Quote. Every Cybertronian knows the name. The ape stepped back, confused, off balance. But you're myth. A legend. The last Prime. The one who died saving Cybertron. Quote. I didn't die. I slept. For 4 million years. And now I'm awake. Quote. The ape stared at him. Then, slowly, he transformed. His massive ape form folded inward, fur becoming armor, claws becoming hands, fangs becoming a faceplate. In moments, where a giant ape had stood, there was now a robot, tall, powerful, with golden optics and a symbol on his chest that matched the one on the tree. My name, he said, is Optimus Primal. Leader of the Maximals. Quote. He bowed, deeply, respectfully. And if you really are who you say you are, then you're my ancestor. Quote. The revelation. Silence. The Autobots stared. The Maximals stared. The Eds stared. Even Ed stopped trying to befriend the catfish. Quote. Descendants. Wheeljack said, finally finding his voice. Your descendants. Quote. From the future, Optimus Primal confirmed. We traveled back through time, through a transwarp anomaly, and ended up here. On this planet. In this era. Quote. Why? Optimus Prime asked. Primal's optics dimmed. To stop a war. A war that hasn't started yet. A war that could end everything. Quote. The elephant, Eraser, transformed, her massive form shifting into a robot with curves and presence and a trunk-like tail that swayed behind her. We're not your enemies, Prime. We're your great-grandchildren, metaphorically speaking. Quote. The metaphor is confusing, Double D said, still dangling from her trunk. Oh. Eraser looked down at him. Sorry, Sugar. She set him down gently. Forgot you were there. Quote. I was very aware that I was there. Quote. The Rhinox, transformed next, his massive form becoming a stocky, powerful robot with gentle optics. Apologies for the rough introduction. We've had bad experiences with Decepticons. Quote. We're not Decepticons, Cliffjumper shouted. We know that now, the cheater, said, transforming into a lean, energetic robot with spots on his armor. But you gotta admit, rolling through the forest in a convoy. Kinda suspicious. Quote. It's a vacation. Quote. Who takes a vacation during a war? Quote. US, apparently. Quote. The Tigatron, transformed last, his form becoming a tall, graceful robot with stripes painted across his armor. The cheetah speaks harshly, but his heart is true. We meant no harm. Only, caution. Caution, Optimus Prime repeated. You attacked us on sight. Quote. You had a Decepticon symbol on your, Primal stopped, looking at the Autobot insignia on Optimus's shoulder. Quote. No, you didn't. You had the original symbol. The one from the old war. Quote. The only war one no, Optimus said. Primal's optics softened. Then you have much to learn, Prime. And we have much to explain. Quote. The negotiation. They gathered in the motel parking lot. Autobots on one side, Maximals on the other, the Eds in the middle because of course the Eds were in the middle. So, Eddie said, crossing his arms. Let me get this straight. You guys are from the future. Correct, Primal said. And you're related to the Autobots. Descended from them. Our sparks carry their legacy. And you attacked us because. Primal sighed. Because we sensed Cybertronian energy signatures and assumed the worst. The Decepticons have been hunting us since we arrived in this time period. We've learned to strike first. And ask questions never. Cheater added. Cheater. Quote. What? It's true. Quote. Optimus Prime stepped forward, his optics fixed on Primal. You said you came back to stop a war. What war? Primal hesitated. A war, he said slowly, that you started. Or, will start. Time travel makes the tenses complicated. I started a war. Quote. Not you. A different you. A corrupted you. Primal's optics dimmed. In our future, Megatron wins. He conquers Cybertron. He enslaves our people. And the only hope we have, is you. Quote. Optimus was silent for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Then we have common cause, he said. The Decepticons are already here. Already building. Already threatening this planet and its people. Quote. Primal looked at the offered hand. Then at the Autobots. Then at the Eds, 3 small, organic children who had somehow become allies in a war they didn't start. You've changed, Primal said quietly. The records said you were cold. Distant. Unwilling to trust. Quote. The records were wrong, Optimus said. Primal took his hand. Then let's prove them wrong. Quote. The return. The convoy back to Peach Creek was larger than before. Jazz led the way, still smooth, still cool, but with a new passenger in his back seat, Cheater, who kept making comments about ancient music and primitive technology. This is not primitive, Jazz said, offended. This is vintage. Quote. It's old. Quote. It's classic. Quote. Bulkhead carried Tigatron, who spent the entire ride staring out the window at the trees. This world is beautiful, asterisk, he murmured. Untouched. Wild. I understand why you chose to protect it. I didn't choose to protect it, Ed said. It just happened. Sometimes the best choices are the ones we don't make. Quote. Quote. That's deep. Quote. I know. Quote. Wheeljack drove alongside Rhinox, the 2 scientists already deep in conversation about transwarp physics and spark dynamics. Your understanding of temporal mechanics is impressive, asterisk, Wheeljack said. Your understanding of explosives is impressive, Rhinox replied. I've never seen a grenade that small with that much yield. Trade secrets. Quote. Obviously. Quote. And Optimus Prime, in his truck form, carried Optimus Primal in his passenger seat. This is strange, asterisk, Primal admitted. What is? Quote. Being driven by my ancestor. In a truck. On a planet that isn't Cybertron. Quote. Strange, Optimus agreed, is relative. Quote. Primal laughed, a low, rumbling sound. I suppose it is. Quote. The Cul-de-Sac. They arrived at dusk. The Cul-de-Sac kids, Kevin, Rolf, Naz, Jimmy, Johnny, and Plank, were waiting in Eddie's driveway, arms crossed, expressions unimpressed. So, Kevin said, looking at the new robots, you brought more of them. They're from the future. Eddie said. Quote. What? Quote. The future. Quote. Kevin stared at Optimus Primal. Primal stared back. Quote. Prove it, Kevin said. Primal transformed, from robot to ape and back again, in the span of 3 seconds. Kevin's jaw dropped. Quote. Okay. Fine. They're from the future. Quote. Told you. Quote. Rolf walked up to Primal, poking his chest with a garden hoe. The metal ape will be a valuable ally. Rolf can sense honor in his spark. Quote. You can sense, my spark. Quote. Rolf senses many things. It is a gift from the old country. Quote. Quote. I don't know what that means. Quote. Neither does Rolf. But it feels correct. Quote. Jimmy was hiding behind Naz, peeking at Cheater with wide eyes. Is he going to bite? Quote. Only if you ask nicely, Cheater said, grinning. I'm not going to ask. Quote. Then you're safe. Quote. The bunker. That night, the Maximals were given quarters in the bunker, old chambers that had been empty for millennia, now filled with new life. Optimus Prime stood with Optimus Primal in the main chamber, looking up at the ancient walls. You said I started a war, Prime said quietly. In the future. Quote. A different you, Primal corrected. A you that lost hope. A you that forgot what you were fighting for. And you think I can stop that? Quote. Primal looked at him, really looked. I know you can, he said. Because the you I know, the real you, would never give up. Not on Cybertron, not on Earth, and not on those 3 children outside. Quote. Prime followed his gaze. Through the bunker's entrance, he could see the Eds, sitting on a pile of tires, arguing about something stupid, laughing about something stupider. They remind me of what we're fighting for, Prime said. Good, Primal said. Don't forget it. Quote. Deep beneath the power plant, the ancient machine stirred. It had felt the new arrivals. More Cybertronians. More energy. More food. But these were different. Their sparks were, older. Stranger. Wrong. Time travelers, the machine realized. Interesting. It pulsed in its tomb, its hunger growing, its patience thinning. Soon, it thought. Very soon. Chapter 11. Decepticons meet Predacons. The industrial plant on the outskirts of Peach Creek had been abandoned for years. Rusted pipes. Broken windows. The smell of old oil and older secrets. It was the kind of place where nothing good happened, which made it the perfect location for a Decepticon base. Megatron sat on his throne, a construction of scrap metal and conquered trophies, his crimson optics sweeping across his assembled forces. The Constructicons stood at attention. The Combaticons waited in formation. Starscream hovered nearby, his wings twitching with barely concealed ambition. But Megatron wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the screen. Run the footage again, he commanded. Soundwave's chest panel opened, projecting the recording into the air. The image was grainy, captured by a spy drone, transmitted through layers of encryption, but it was clear enough. Autobots. Fighting alongside others. Cybertronians who transformed into animals. A cheetah, a tiger, a rhino, and their leader, a massive ape who moved with the grace of a warrior and the weight of a king. So, Megatron said slowly, those must be the new recruits. Yes, my lord, Soundwave confirmed. Laserbeak was able to gather extensive data. The animal form Cybertronians called themselves Maximals. Maximals. Megatron tasted the word. And their leader. Optimus Primal. Silence. Starscream's optics widened. Optimus Primal. Named after. After Optimus Prime, Megatron finished, his voice cold. Yes, I noticed. A Cybertronian who transforms into an ape now names himself after your sworn enemy, Starscream said, unable to hide his smirk. How insulting. I don't need your commentary, Starscream. I'm simply observing. Observe silently. Starscream's mouth snapped shut. His smirk, however, remained. Thundercracker stepped forward, his blue optics fixed on the screen. Lord Megatron, I've detected multiple energy signatures in the forest sector. The Autobots and Maximals are engaging unknown forces. Megatron's optic twitched. Unknown. Cybertronian. But not Autobot. Not Maximal. Not us. Thundercracker pulled up a new image, grainy, blurry, but unmistakable. They also have beast modes. A purple dinosaur. A wasp. A fire ant. How very intriguing. Shall I mobilize a strike force? No. Megatron stood, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the command deck. Prepare a ground bridge. I want to see these unknowns for myself. And if they're hostile. Megatron smiled, a thin, cruel expression. Then we'll give them a proper welcome. The battlefield, forest sector. The fight was chaos. Inferno, the Predacon fire ant, fired his weapons wildly, flames erupting from his wrists, scorching the trees, melting the earth. For the royalty. For the queen. Quote. There is no queen. Soundstriker shouted back, her elephant trunk lashing out. There is always a queen. Quote. There is literally. Soundstriker's trunk wrapped around a fallen log and hurled it directly at Inferno. Crash. The Predacon was flattened, comically, perfectly flattened, his limbs sticking out from under the log like a squashed bug. Sorry, Sugar, Soundstriker said, dusting off her hands. But this elephant isn't getting crushed by any ants. Big or ugly. Quote. I am not an ant. I am a predacon. Quote. You look like an ant. Quote. That's speciesist. Quote. Above the battlefield, Windblade chased Waspinator through the clouds. Her jet mode was sleek, deadly, cutting through the air like a blade. Waspinator's beast mode was less impressive. Waspinator will not allow Jet Lady to harm Lord Megatron. The green wasp buzzed, zigzagging erratically. Lord Megatron. Windblade called out. Which Megatron? There are like 4 of them now. Quote. The real one. Quote. They're all real. That's the problem. Quote. Windblade fired a warning shot, a laser that streaked past Waspinator's wing, close enough to singe. Ah. Waspinator does not want to be singed. Quote. Then land. Quote. Waspinator does not know how. Quote. Quote. You're a wasp. Quote. Waspinator is a predacon. There is a difference. Quote. On the ground, Bumblebee faced off against Quickstrike. The Fuzor, half snake, half robot, hissed and spat, his tail lashing, his fangs dripping. You know how to fly, little bee, Quickstrike hissed, but my venom can do way more damage than your sting. Quote. Is that a threat? Bumblebee beeped, his horns flashing. It's a promise. Quote. Quickstrike lunged, fangs open, venom dripping, but Bumblebee was faster. He ducked under the strike, rolled to the side, and fired a point-blank shot directly into Quickstrike's chest. Blam! The Fuzor went flying, tumbling through the air, crashing into a tree, slumping to the ground. Quote. That stung, Quickstrike groaned. That's the point, Bumblebee shouted. And then there was the heavyweight match. Bulkhead and Rampage circled each other like boxers in a ring, except the ring was a forest clearing, and the boxers were giant robots. I will crush you, Rampage growled, his crab-like claws snapping. I will tear you apart. I will scatter your remains across this pathetic planet. Quote. You talk a lot for someone who's about to lose, Bulkhead replied. Lose. Rampage laughed, a harsh, grinding sound. I am a triple changer. I have 2 alt modes. How many do you have? Quote. 1. Quote. Then you are inferior. Quote. Rampage charged, claws reaching, fangs bared, and Bulkhead met him. Crash. The 2 giants collided, metal screaming, sparks flying, each one pushing against the other, testing strength, testing will. Not bad, Rampage admitted, straining against Bulkhead's grip. For a construction worker. Quote. And you're not bad, Bulkhead replied, for a lobster. Quote. I am not a. Bulkhead's right arm transformed, shifting, folding, rearranging, until a massive mace replaced his hand. Wham! The mace connected with Rampage's face, direct hit, sending the triple changer flying across the clearing. I have wits. Bulkhead shouted. You only have anger. Quote. Rampage crashed into a boulder, his optics spinning, his claws twitching. Quote. That was cheap, he muttered. It was effective. Quote. The leaders duel. And then, he stepped forward. The Predacon leader. The other Megatron. He stood in the center of the clearing, his T-Rex head glowing, his golden optics burning. His voice, when it came, was a rumble, low and dangerous. "You Autobots are so predictable, asterisk," he said. "So heroic, so determined to protect the weak." "And you're predictable, asterisk," Optimus Primal replied, stepping between the Predacon and the downed Autobots. "Power-hungry, cruel, willing to destroy anything to get what you want. We're not so different, you and I. Quote, we are nothing alike." Quote. The Predacon Megatron smiled, a terrible, tooth-filled expression. "Then prove it." Quote. He raised his arm, his T-Rex head, and fired. The blast was enormous, a beam of purple energy that tore through the clearing, shattering trees, vaporizing rocks, hurling Autobots and Maximals alike through the air. Optimus Primal flew, tumbling end over end, crashing into a fallen log. "Primal!" Cheetor shouted. "I'm fine." Primal groaned, struggling to his feet. "That's going to leave a mark." Quote. The Predacon Megatron laughed, a booming, triumphant sound. "Is that all you've got?" he taunted. The great Optimus Primal, descendant of the Primes, reduced to rubble by a single shot. Quote. He raised his arm for another blast. And the sky tore open. The arrival. A ground bridge spiraled into existence, green energy swirling, reality bending, and from its depths came armor. Not soldiers. Not scouts. Legends. Megatron stepped through first, the original Megatron, his fusion cannon glowing, his crimson optics burning. Behind him came Starscream, Soundwave, Thundercracker, and a legion of Decepticon soldiers. The battlefield went silent. The Predacon Megatron, the Beast Megatron, froze. His optics widened, his jaw dropped, and then, incredibly, he bowed. Quote, "I cannot believe it," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It's really you." Quote. Megatron, the original, stared down at the kneeling Predacon. "You know who I am." Quote. "Every Cybertronian knows who you are." The Predacon Megatron's voice was reverent. "Megatron, leader of the Decepticons, conqueror of Cybertron, the greatest warrior our race has ever produced." Quote. "Flattery," the original Megatron said, "will get you everywhere." Quote. "It's not flattery. It's truth." The Predacon looked up, his golden optics shining. "I named myself after you. I built my empire in your image. I have spent my entire existence trying to honor your legacy." Quote. Starscream snorted. "Another Megatron. How original." Quote. "Silence," both Megatrons said simultaneously. Starscream's wings drooped. The original Megatron circled the Predacon, his optics scanning, assessing. "You're from the future, asterisk," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. And you've come back to, what? Witness my glory. Bask in my presence." "To serve you," the Predacon said. "To aid you. The Autobots have their Maximals, time-traveling descendants who seek to destroy us. But we have each other. Decepticons and Predacons, united under one banner." Quote. He extended his hand. "Let us fight together, Lord Megatron. Let us crush the Autobots. Burn their cities. Scatter their sparks to the winds." Quote. The original Megatron looked at the offered hand. Then at the Predacon's kneeling form. Then at the assembled Decepticons, his true soldiers, his loyal followers. "Very well," Megatron said, taking the Predacon's hand. "The Predacons are now part of our army. We have grown stronger than ever before." Quote. The Predacon Megatron's face split into a triumphant grin. "You won't regret this, Lord Megatron." Quote. "I better not." Quote. The relic. But as the Decepticons and Predacons mingled, sizing each other up, trading war stories, plotting their next move, the Predacon Megatron pulled the original aside. "There's something else," he said quietly. "Something I found. In the future. Something that could change everything." He reached into his chassis, into a compartment hidden beneath his armor, and withdrew a relic. It was small, unassuming, a golden disc, covered in symbols that predated Cybertron itself. "What is it?" the original Megatron asked. The Predacon's optics gleamed. "The key to winning the war," he said. "A weapon that can reshape reality. Rewrite history. Erase our enemies from existence." Quote. The original Megatron took the disc, turning it over in his hands. "And you're giving this to me. I'm giving it to us." Quote. The two Megatrons stood in the shadows of the industrial plant, the golden disc glowing between them. Neither of them noticed the hum. Neither of them felt the vibration. Neither of them realized that the relic was already active, that it was pulsing with energy, reaching out, connecting with something deep beneath the earth. Something ancient. Something hungry. The machine beneath the power plant stirred. It had tasted the relic's energy, golden, powerful, infinite, and it wanted more. Soon, it thought. Soon. The Autobot base, that night. Optimus Prime stood before his assembled forces, Autobots and Maximals alike, his optics dark with concern. The Decepticons have allied with the Predacons, he said. Two armies, united under one banner. Two Megatrons, working together. That's bad, right? Ed asked. That's catastrophic, Double D replied. But we have us, Eddie said, gesturing at the Maximals. And them. And our suits. And they have a relic, Optimus Primal interrupted. Something from the future. Something powerful. Something I've seen before. He turned to face the original Optimus. In my timeline, Primal said quietly, that relic destroyed Cybertron. Not the Decepticons. Not the Autobots. The relic. It ate the planet's spark. Consumed its energy. Left nothing but dust and memory. Silence. We have to stop them, Optimus Prime said. We will, Primal replied. But we can't do it alone. The two leaders looked at the Eds, three small, terrified, determined children who had somehow become the heart of this war. We're not going anywhere, Eddie said, crossing his arms. We can't, Double D added. This is our home. Quote. And I have a suit. Ed shouted. With arms. And legs. And sometimes the arms fall off. Quote. We're working on that, Double D muttered. Optimus Prime knelt down, bringing himself to their level. Then let's work together, he said. All of us. Autobots. Maximals. Humans. He extended his hand. Eddie looked at it. Then at Double D. Then at Ed. Quote. Fine, Eddie said, shaking Optimus's finger. But I'm still expensing everything. Quote. Noted. Quote. Everything. Noted. And this is the end of the first movie.